Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Okay, welcome to the Combined Select Board Budget Committee Workshop. We've got a heavy agenda tonight. I wanted to just clarify, this is not a meeting at which there will be public comment. This is sort of an ongoing process where we go through each department, look at the proposed town manager budget for that department, and have comment from both Budget Committee and Select Board members about that budget. There will be, first of all, as we've said before, Select Board members, Budget Committee members, you can email them with any comments you have. You can also do a general Select Board at rockportmaine.gov, Budget Committee at rockportmaine.gov. So public comments can be submitted that way. And then on March 30th, at the Select Board Budget Committee meeting there, that will be also an opportunity for public comment. And there will be a budget that will be further along in the process by that point. So let's get going.
John, can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, anybody on the committee can make any comment they want.
All right. Last week, when our first meeting, we were all smiles, we were patting each other on the backs and so forth. It was a good job, but as you look back on all of those numbers we looked at last week, most of the reductions all had to do with the healthcare costs. It was kind of a gift to the department heads that group went ahead and negotiated new healthcare costs. So we really didn't show real decreases in the budgets that we've shown. We linked to each one. I'm just concerned that we're gonna be back here next year if we don't do some cutting in the budget.
Yeah.
We're gonna be back here at the same place next year, just kicking ourselves because we didn't do more to look at some of these cuts in the budget. And I maybe sound like a broken record, but just go back and remind everybody that 5 years ago, the expenses that we're looking at now are $12 million. 5 years ago, they were $7 million, 63% increase in the expenses. In the share of our school budget that we paid for. 5 years ago it was $11,157,000. Today it's $13,568,000, a 21% increase. So the schools went up 21%, but our municipal expenses went up 63%. Back then we had 29 employees. We now have 43. So we've added 14 extra employees. That's a 48% increase in the number of employees. On the wages and benefits, we were at $3 million. Today, we're at $6,847,000. That's a 120% increase in the wages. And 54% of the total expenses in the town make up, again, the wages and expenses of the town budget. So I'm just saying, I think we need to, again, make sure we're doing our homework this year, because we don't want to be back here next year kicking ourselves. We haven't done these reductions. And I go back to maybe a thought I had last week, Joe, when I said, to me, if you were to go back to each one of your departments and say, come back to me with a 5% reduction. Okay, they've given a gift right now because of what we did this year with the healthcare.
Yep.
They're the folks that know their departments. They're the ones that know what they can cut and not do as little harm as possible to the people in Rockport. So we need to really buckle in and cut some of these expenses we have in the budget.
Well, I don't know if you want me to respond at all, Bill, or I can't.
Well, these are just my comments.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, sure. I would say all the department heads who watched last week's meeting they all have sort of done their own notes probably about that question. So I think that's well said. The one thing I would maybe just mention to you all is the job here that we have all before us, and the job before me, is to present a budget for the next fiscal year, to July to June 30, and to make the best of what that is. There has been a lot of work that went into this. There was some of it that involved committees and joint committees and task forces. Some of it's at the behest of department heads, some of it from me, some from the select board. So I think there's a lot of different avenues from which we have success in this budget. But we have to look at this as a 12-month process in and of itself. You can't fix the sins of the last 5 years in 12 months, and we can't fix the sins of the next 12 months with that. This process is really for that period of July to June. I think that if we go through that process with the 14 people that are elected here to be here and make those decisions will be obvious and brought forth. What's presented to you is a budget that's a 1% budget. It wasn't a negative 5% budget or negative 10% budget. It was a less than 1% budget, which was what the target was from this committee and heard loud and clear. So now the question to me is, can we do better? I mean, to your point, Bill, what is better? Is better below that number? Is that a better result for the town of Rockport? I'll leave that to you to decide. You're the elected officials. That's your choice. But I believe, and I think we heard just in the few departments we had last week, that significant reductions of a 5% nature would have significant change provided to the services provided from those departments as is. Again, that's a decision for you all to make if that's something you're comfortable in considering. But that is something that is certainly within your purview, and all of you have the authority to make those changes as needed. So I think that that's on one note. On the second note, I think that we have made structural changes that will put us on a good path for next year. Very quickly today, we ran through some very, very quick numbers and very rough numbers that make it very simple for us to get to a 3% number. But again, I want to reiterate, in that time, we built a library, we built a fire station, we had 30% inflation. Like, those items didn't happen in a vacuum. Those are items that some of us voted against and happened. So either way, whatever happens as of July 1st, 2026, that's the budget that this budget will work from. And I hope that the work that we put in and last week and moving forward the next few weeks, that budget will be a reflection of what you as elected officials want that to be. And the public outcome of, or the public feedback from that will be as it is. If they agree with you, they'll vote for you at the polls. If they disagree with you, they'll say, no, we want to go a different way. And that's the process. And I think we had a great conversation last time. I think we can continue to do that tonight and the next few weeks. But this process is about FY '27. It's not about FY '21, '23. It's not about what happened in COVID. It's not about building a library. It's about FY '27, and that's the job that's before me, and it was before me, and now before all of you. And I think we can do that, but it will take all of us working together to make that happen. So,
But I think we have some great employees, and I know they're all dedicated to what we're doing in the town and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we cannot continue, John, in the direction we've been on expenses. We need to somehow cut, and the people who know how to cut it the best are the people in the department heads. And
I say 1% is a good number, Bill.
for this
It's
year,
less than inflation.
for this year,
Yeah.
well, in fact, it was last year was 2.7%, right?
This year, the budget, the number that was read was 0.74% of a net increase. That's what this budget says.
Primarily because of the healthcare.
Well,
Yeah.
But that's one way, and there may be another pathway we find for next year. But we can't solve next year's problems this year.
No, I know that.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
And what I'm saying is the department heads are the folks that know what's going on. It was almost a gift to them for the healthcare, because they didn't have to worry about negotiating. They were given that. And I'm just saying, they're the ones that know how to cut these budgets, that's all.
I think there's some truth to that. I also would say the conversations that I had with all of those department heads before we knew the true impact of what that health insurance conversation would be, we're discussing deep cuts and cuts that were of positions and of to the type that would change the way that services are delivered. Now, when that task force's work came in, we didn't know what the outcome would be, and we went and all of those department heads. I'm not going to put Liz on the spot, but all the department heads came in with the expectation that heavy impact was going to be needed to their budget to make this thing fit and be in a place that our taxpayers can afford.
But they didn't have to do it, right?
Well, we came in, no, a lot of them did do that.
They didn't have to do it, okay.
Yeah, a lot of them did make those changes, but the question was, how much do you want, how deep do you go in when if you're at 1%, and that's the target that the budget committee has set for you, and it's a below inflation rate, to go to say, I'm gonna take someone's job so that we can hit a number it's really not something that the department heads or I would have been really happy with. Now, that may be a conversation we wanna have here, because there's some concern about that, increase over time. We talked a lot, Steve, we talked about that, can't remember the term we had, but it was, the cliff, and trying to flatten the curve, right? And so, to me, this budget flattens a curve, and it allows us to talk about a flat curve, a flattened curve. And now the question is, now what's next? And I think you really, really good point, Bill, because once you get one budget done, you immediately think, what's the next thing? So I'm with you.
Okay, I don't want to take the whole meeting on this. I just think that we felt so good after the last meeting, but we really need to, I think, dig in further. That's all.
There you go. Perfect.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so we want to jump in here? Going to town clerk? You okay, Bill? Are you okay? Jeff? All right. Town clerk. So Liz is here. Thank you, Liz. So this is a budget that has a net decrease of let's just say -4% overall. There is an increase, though, on the expenditure side. It's largely due to a shift of a position. So last year, there was some discussion about a position need for the town clerk, feeling that there was more work really than the time allowed. And near the end of the budget process, some of you may recall, I wanted to shift the position, which is the assistant for the Planning and Community Development Department, and split part of their time with the town clerk's position. We did not move it in the budget, however. So in last year's budget, though we discussed it near the end, we actually didn't move it in the budget. So this year's budget, where we had plenty of time to plan, that shift has occurred, and that's really the predominant amount of the increase here. We obviously have an election year. There's a number of costs that are related to the election. That's usually the variable that you'll run into in the clerk's office. That's all I had. Liz, what else do you want to maybe highlight or talk about?
I can touch upon, I was here last year and asked for that third full-time person, and then we were able, as John said, to bring Ren in to be part-time in each, and I'm here to say it's been great. The clerks and I truly appreciate all her help. As you can see, even from absentee numbers or any of my numbers for transactions going through the office, mine are going up. It hasn't slowed down for us. It's been nice to have Ren in there to kind of take some of the burden off the other two that are constantly at the counter. I've been able to utilize my deputy in more projects, looking deeper into things we've wanted to get done within the department. So it has been very welcome for us. We're gearing up for June. We're already looking at a very busy gubernatorial. Everybody's trained and ready to go, so.
John, we talk about part-time employees throughout this budget. It doesn't mean they don't get benefits. They still receive benefits? No? No benefits?
No, part-time benefit, no, right, no
So
part-time.
in this case, Ren does not get benefits?
She does, but she's she's a full-time employee, but split between two departments. So her costs are split as well, so benefits costs are split as well.
But when we refer to part-time employees,
Part-time in that department, the contribution to that department,
all right.
yeah,
Question.
yeah.
Okay, could you explain a little bit more about line 4615, the write-offs? I'm still a little confused.
Absolutely.
Exactly what that means.
Absolutely. So we have the money I'm asking for in this case is actually one specific company that's personal property tax that has been uncollectible since 2017. They're out of business. We've tried every avenue. Since I came on in 2022, I've tried everything I could to collect this, but we still have some outstanding debt from them, and it's just basically housekeeping.
So this is attorney's fees and notices and things like that?
Notices, no attorneys have been involved in personal property
Okay,
as of yet. But if that's the case, if that's the direction we want to go, I'd need that.
But it's largely uncollectible tax.
It's,
Right.
So we
yes,
have to
it
call
is.
it an expense. Right. So that way we can clean the books.
Okay, thank you.
So you book it as revenue when the tax bill goes out.
As a receivable when it
Yeah.
goes out.
And then-
So for us to write off the receivable, we have to expense it somewhere, so we expense it to write-offs.
Exactly. We do a lot more with records preservation. It went from 3,300, again, 4 years ago. Today, it's up to $8,000.
That is just a price increase in actually doing the records preservation. They've gone fully to like a faux leather-bound book. I went to do a few years ago, and the price has just gone,
So this outside contractor?
yes,
Same contractor we've been using for years.
yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, Liz, any thoughts on digitizing some of the records?
Yes, we've started to do some of that in-house, just scanning into, but we did price out digitizing down the road. But for my department, I still have to keep that retention. So
What is the retention time on, say, you've got birth, death, and marriage records,
those are life,
life?
yeah,
okay.
yep,
Or beyond.
or beyond.
I mean, not to,
Right, yeah.
just saying.
Yeah, I looked at state statute on that stuff because, and it's just crazy what
It
Maine
is.
requires. It's
Yeah.
beyond the pale that every
Why we
assessor
preserve
record.
them. So I have to keep them for, so we try to keep them in good shape and,
So that's a state level change we might be able to push to take off the burden of these small towns to find storage for all these records.
right.
So Liz, up under the performance measures, there's absentee ballots they're like double a couple
Yes.
years ago. What are you expecting for this year?
Probably about the same, if not more.
So my question for you is, does that add a significant administrative burden?
Yes.
To your office? Like,
Yes.
Who ends up handling that?
The clerks, Shay, Wendy, Wren, and I,
So that's all manual?
all
work?
manual.
Okay. And so the total number of transactions processed, that number is somehow rolled into that?
That is actually not, doesn't include absentee ballot processing. That's
Okay.
tax payments, harbor, transactions, that's anything above and beyond.
So clearly, the work you're processing is increasing pretty
Yes.
dramatically. What are the drivers of that? What are the big, besides the elections?
I like to think it's our customer service.
Repeat customer.
I have a picture of Wendy putting a license plate on someone's car the other day. No, I think it's just, I don't know. The absentee ballots, that's political, obviously. But I think people just they're coming in, they're asking the questions. The amount of time the girls are at the counter now, I can't even, it's all day long.
I mean, are we offering additional, like the license plates or anything? I mean, we're just trying to get a
That was a
grip
big
on.
one this year, right?
That was the new license plates were 75% of the transactions if you came in to renew and you had a chickadee plate. So any of that was, 75% of that was time consuming too.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, them having to come in probably was a driving force because in order to get your new plate, the majority of our population, of our residents, came in. They didn't do the online requesting them. just
So
because
this is
it was-
just at in-person transactions,
Yes.
no online?
yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with this, are you seeing it kind of peaking out at this point in terms of new services you're offering and?
Peeking out?
Well,
Maybe a little bit, but not,
Well, the license plates will be done
the
by
license
May.
plates will be done as of May. The full year will be in cycle, but
Yeah, okay.
Making money, man.
Revenue.
Sound of revenue, man. So I want to, this is on the bend the curve sort of theme, and it goes a little bit to the digitization thing. And we did talk last year about how much online.
Yeah.
Out in the sort of business world, there's a ton of discussion about AI and some of these new technologies coming on board. People who know me know that I was a Luddite on all of this. I'm a Windows 95 guy. Up until like, that was the peak of human achievement, I think, is Windows 95. It's all been derivatives since then. But, I mean, Walker and I were just talking a few minutes ago about how incredible these AI technologies are in terms of producing things and producing reports. And this may be an organization-wide question, but are you guys able to take time to explore that? Can you get training from MMA about how to deploy these tools? Is there some way that we can think about what processes AI can take on that you're seeing the private sector use AI to do that could maybe, take some of this off and then you could focus on the customer-facing thing? I mean, is that even something you guys are talking
It's
about?
coming.
Okay.
We see it through MMA,
Okay.
through the clerk world. The classes are starting to come through, and the
Okay.
talks are just starting.
Okay.
Predominantly, clerks don't like change, so I can see it creeping up.
Yeah, okay.
But, yep,
But you have access to training and
Yes,
those
we
kinds
do.
of things?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've budgeted for that someplace?
the training, yep.
Okay.
And
We
just to
did.
jump off that, Steve, so MMA had a conference last year. They have an annual technology conference that was entirely focused on AI. And
Okay.
AI include, trying to include that in your everyday work life. And I was a little disappointed, to be honest, in terms of, because to Liz's point, so much of what we do just sort of gets stuck
It's
in an old
transactional.
way.
Yes.
It is.
That's right.
But it was, a lot of it was really the things that those of us who are sitting at a desk and, letters and emails and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
processing, AI chatbots for ability for people to, hey, I got a question on the website. Our website doesn't have that, of course, but, those sort of things to really make it really readily accessible to someone. They were sort of really, we had 3 speakers and 2 of them said the same thing in a different way, but basically saying, it's really early, but it'll be cool once it's there. So I think it's moving there, but I think the municipal world of software is so specific and strange. Like we have this, we spent some time trying to look at a new accounting software for the town. Our current software is based on this old thing that was built by an assessor 30 years ago, and it's horrendous. Poor Megan, poor
government
Liz,
systems, yeah.
they work on this thing. It's terrible. But, the point is, there are some new avenues out there, but, how much more of it is just a guy in his garage? So we're trying, how do you get the support behind something like that? So we've looked. There haven't been a lot of great options, and of course, you don't want to just buy somebody else's problem too. That's what I worry about with software.
No, yeah, and
But I think it's where we got to go.
yeah, I mean, my understanding, because I was doing some analysis for work, and somebody who knows way more about AI than I do said, watch what I had done, and was like, look, you need to understand that that system was not capable of doing that 6 months ago. So these models are improving
sense. Yeah.
at pretty remarkable rates. And you and I were talking about earlier, like being able to put this kind of information into
Yeah.
AI and generate reports, like it's pretty staggering what it can do
It's wild.
that it couldn't do a year ago. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to see a training line in here, and that you guys are, I want to be sure you guys have time to invest in that, because that's a game changer potentially in terms of AI solutions that could free up, staff to do other things, or
100%.
Right.
Totally. And I will say, I came back from that conference. I walked in her office, and I said, "You wouldn't believe what I just heard." She's like, "Oh no!" But there's a lot
It's
of good
probably the
stuff
right
that's out
reaction
there.
on her
Right. Anytime I
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. I know you had a question.
Well, to build on what Steve's saying, I just came back from a municipal innovation conference at the Rue Institute. And they were all over using AI for customer service
Yeah.
on the website to handle exactly what we were just talking about. A lot
Right.
of these small transactions could be answered with a bot. And I don't know how much that would cost. I can't imagine it's much money. Have we researched any of that? I mean, short of adding yet another 50% of a person, why aren't we investing in something like that?
Well, we wouldn't be so this isn't adding anything necessarily. This is really just a shift of a budget reflection of what we discussed a year ago. But in terms of why wouldn't we look at that? I think that's part of a software purchase, right? That's part of we're redoing the website, or we're going to look at new accounting software that's sort of, someone's gotta get the check somewhere, right? But how do we find those avenues? And then, oh, by the way, we have to clear our schedules to be able to have conversations with 8 different software providers and so forth. That didn't, we tried it, we got halfway through those interviews with one provider this year. We're gonna need time to really find those options and find ones that have a broad base, that it's not just you're the first one doing it. I don't wanna be the first one to do something.
You're
I wanna
not.
be the
There already-
15th.
There already are plenty of towns doing it.
They're not great, but yeah, they're out there.
And to build on that,
They're not.
well short of a
I've seen 'em.
half a position, there's, you can pilot these things. You can make a
Sure.
decision as a team. These seem to be the 4 things that are ripe for this. And then we find somebody around here who knows this stuff really well, and we put them on a small contract, and we pay them a little bit to build a couple of apps or things
Yep.
that we can, because this AI will create its own apps. I mean, so there's really a lot of capability. So I don't know how to memorialize that in this,
I
but
don't, yeah.
I'm hoping that you guys can think about, like, how can we do some
Yes.
small scale pilots? Believe me, I know what government, contracting around
It's terrible.
technology is
You know,
hideous.
yeah.
But there's ways to bite off little chunks of it. We don't need to go and replace the entire finance package in order to
don't.
explore some of these options.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is the biggest source of frustration presently,
Yep.
but that one's not, it's not ready for prime time.
Even short of AI, there is a lot of stuff you can do online. Do we have statistics on how much, like, uptake of that or anything?
I don't have the statistics, but after last year, we tweaked our online tax payments because I started that when I began a few years ago, and we've had to kind of manipulate it a few times just to make it a little more user-friendly. So we did see an uptick in our online tax payments. That was predominantly our timeshare because it's such a low, there is a 2.5% fee to use that. We implemented the online dog service, which now whenever we use the online services, and same with the harbor, the goal was for everybody at the harbor to use online mooring, to go online. And with that being said, I think it was, we still had about 300 transactions of those come through the door, or they print off their invoice online and then walk through the door.
With a check in
So, with a check in hand. So, yeah,
And
for as
you
much
mean
as
the
we're
town clerk's
trying.
office isn't the only group that doesn't like change?
So as much
Yeah.
as we're trying, people still like to come in and they have the questions, and
Yeah.
that's what we're there for. That's,
Sure, absolutely.
You know,
Well, I think, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it'd be, if there are any statistics, I think it'd be nice to see, because,
Sure.
and even try to set some performance, measure, there's something we've talked about as a budget
Right.
committee, like, how can we get that to increase?
Yeah.
Just to sort of, you'd like to see, new registrations in person declining, and, or
Right.
whatever, maybe I picked a bad category, but ideally, that will
They've-
make things more
a
efficient,
lot
I
of
think.
people do the online renewals with motor vehicle, but anytime you have a new one,
Right.
or have to
You-
transfer
those
one,
have to-
you have to come to us.
That's right.
Or you have any type
Right.
of paperwork.
Yeah, so
So-
maybe just renewals and,
Right.
and tax payments and
Right.
whatnot,
I think
Dog
we've
license.
utilized
Dog
as much
license.
as we could
Yeah.
do with the online services, vital
Yeah,
records.
yeah.
It has to be in person.
Sure, I just,
have to,
and
you know,
maybe there's
it's-
just more information
yeah.
that can, ways to communicate it.
I can-
Or like you said,
absolutely.
make things more usable, just,
Right.
things to sort of monitor, how can we improve that?
Right.
And I think we talked last year about potentially, understanding that there is a cost to the in-person transactions. So when we're trying to carve out our 2.5% fee, we're disincentivizing people from going online.
Right.
Now, some services you can do like an e-check. So you're not actually using a credit card. You can just
Yeah.
link it to your, different ways to sort of incentivize people who
Right.
are already going online.
Yeah.
An hour. That's true. That's distracting. 6:30 to 7:30.
Feel like dancing, huh?
I see dollar signs.
Dancing in that way.
And the absentee ballots will be huge this year.
Yes.
And there's now a state program where you can sign up for an absentee ballot. The information goes to the town, and it's on the town to put it together and mail it to that person.
Even if
'cause
you
I see this
request your ballot
postage.
online, I get the online request, I still have to process that request, I still have to send out the ballot and package it, send it, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the online, I mean, the ongoing absentee ballots every year, we send those out if you request those. But we've definitely seen a huge uptick in people voting in person or coming and taking out ballots for husband, wives, children, so.
And any help on election day, that many people have already voted? Do you, I mean, does that
The
reduce
election
the
day
staff?
has gone down, yeah. I don't have to staff, election days dropped significantly.
So we might be saving some money on that
Yeah,
side of it?
I predominantly use town staff. This year, I have to have volunteers, because it's a gubernatorial, not volunteers, because we have to pay them this year, that's part of my budget. But I have to have enough staff for the gubernatorial, that's state mandated.
Have we looked on, for the online services of canceling out the additional fee to reduce people walking into the town office? Thinking it's gonna offset what we're paying staff?
We can't do that by law. We're obligated to collect our fees by statute. So if we're charged a fee on the back end for providing that service, we have to pass on that fee. It's a requirement. Especially for like property taxes and things like that. We're required to collect that set amount.
But can we make it an option for like an ACH?
I
Like
would-
I know with my business, I can take credit card, it's gonna charge a fee, but it's gonna charge a fee and take it out of my pocket.
Your pocket, yeah.
But for the town, tax it on, but I can offer ACH from a checking account or savings, and it's a wash.
Yeah.
Can we look at that option?
I don't think they offer that.
I don't think they offer it, yeah.
Who's the,
They being the state.
our credit card
software
processing?
Provider,
Paid for.
who is actually through the state. So we use the state to process our online transactions, and the state is who sets that fee.
And then I had another question too, completely off topic from this. I'm not sure where it comes up, but with the rising in taxes, property taxes and whatnot, would your office be the one to ask, like, do we have a gut check on how the property owners are feeling it? Like our deferments, our past due, do we know where that number is? On past due taxes or like liens, like, there's been a change in state law
Yeah.
on liens, so do we know where we are compared to where we was for past due taxes?
Well, in fact, it's actually somewhat, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm just gonna go off feel right now, so I'll go, you said gut check, right, Greg? So I'll go by my gut.
I didn't know when to ask it, so.
Yeah, no, it's a
I
good
saw
one.
Liz, I'm gonna ask
Yeah,
Liz.
so every year, so we have the two payments, and we get through our two tax payments, and after the period of time, there's a 30-day notice that goes out that says, in 30 days from now, we're gonna lien your property if you haven't paid. And then, obviously, there's fees that go attached to it. So, once the lien is filed on a property, 18 months after that is the foreclosure date, where automatically, if you haven't paid your taxes and fees in full, the town automatically forecloses upon the property. We just sent out notices 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, to all of all the owners of property that are in that list, that are in danger of potentially having foreclosure. My gut tells me, just in looking at it, it's not considerably different than what I've seen in the past. It's a lot of the same names, frankly. It's a list that, and I couldn't even tell you. I can just tell you I'm looking at it as my mind's eye on my desk. A lot of timeshare units, which are not really the same as. I think we all feel a little differently about those timeshare units than certainly someone's home and their circumstance. But I can't say that it struck me that it was considerably different than what I've seen the last few years. But we also have had a number of properties we've taken off that list because we have put them into town. So we had 4 different properties that we put up for sale this year. So it may be it might be a little bit bigger, but not dramatically different.
So I have some numbers.
Do you have them?
Yeah.
Is it
So-
my vote?
No,
oh,
it's in
okay.
my,
I was
it's on
gonna
my
say, I
handy
won't
dandy
look.
sheet. So, I mean, John was talking about the 30-day, the lien.
Yeah.
So from 2022 to 2024, we'd send out roughly, 2022 is 271 30-day notices.
Yeah.
In 2024, we had 381.
Yeah.
So then going to, people get that 30-day, then it goes to go to lien. And typically that was around 111, and 2024 was 185. And then that then went down to, we sent out about, which is what we did this year, about 40 foreclosure notices. And we've already received, like John said, it's the same list, and we're receiving those payments and discharging those liens now. So we haven't seen a lot of difference there, if that's what your question was.
That's where I was going.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's the human side of this, right? Like, whatever we do here, you've talked about it, like, that's why we're doing this. Is
I just want to
those
make sure,
folks.
like, we don't see a huge uptick.
Yeah.
No.
No, not
Yeah.
yet, you know, like, we're all trying not to, right? And I'll say this, like, we talk with people, and we're working through that circumstance. When we met with somebody, or, you know, how do you get through it? You know, family circumstances, going to a bank, talking to a friend, like, everybody has a way to get through that situation. Someone I've known for my whole life, you know, in town. That's the hardest part of the job, without a doubt. And let's try to keep that spike from happening, you know, that's all we can do, so, anyway. Any other questions on town clerk, or any other thoughts on town clerk? I don't, if there's
Yeah.
anybody other,
Do people have concerns or things they want to highlight as issues with respect to the town clerk budget?
okay. Cemeteries then, page 253, but 255 is where the sort of line by line is. So this is a budget that is down 87.34%. This is the first place and probably the most notable place where the reductions are driven in part or in large part by the move to a mowing crew and hiring part-time labor in the summer to do that. And again, just as a reminder from the initial night, this budget kind of lives in two mowing seasons. So the first part of the first few months of this fiscal year, starting July 1, 2026, is the end of the mowing contract that currently exists for the town of Rockport with Farley Inc. And then, as you sort of turn the calendar, the end of this budget is the first few months of the next mowing season, 2027. And so there's some labor and some startup costs for that. That's not in this budget. Those are in buildings and grounds, and we'll talk about that, I guess, on Wednesday night. But the savings is here. So if you can somewhat keep those two thoughts in your mind at the same time, obviously, we can talk, you know, if you want to talk a little bit about that or all of it, whatever you want to do.
So you want to pull the mowing services really to buildings and grounds?
Yeah,
ideally?
rather than have it
Yeah.
spread out and, we've
Yep.
sort of talked about that, about having difficulties and having things everywhere. And I think in the same way we sort of did here with
Yep.
putting video tech here, trying to have it as condensed as can be.
Yep.
So that was the thought. The other major item that I want to highlight also is we had a substantial sort of roadway repair project that we were in this budget year, FY '26. It's mostly complete. Mike can talk a little bit about that because we did that in-house, saved some money in that process, and got quite a bit of work done in doing so. But that is not part of the budget, and it was sort of a one-time cost. So it's, we're hoping that we won't have to repair the same road over and over again, so.
And is that showing up in the grave and roadway repairs?
Yeah, line 3641, so basically, we're not putting the 50,000 again in that, it's just a $2,500 number for, modest repairs for grave and.
And the
roadways.
9170 is pretty much done for the year then? Or would there be more cost?
There will be more costs. Do you want to talk about the project, just to how far you got on that, Mike?
Yeah, we've gotten a couple lanes in the West Rockport Cemetery. We still need to get a couple more. We worked right up until basically we lost weather. Everything was turning to mud. So there will be some money left over and will get used in the spring as soon as we can get on them and get the things dried up to get those roads in and complete, then we should be fine.
But significantly less than the 50,000 that was budgeted.
Yes, and we're gonna get some more roads and some more work done than originally, because we've done it in-house.
And again, the purpose of that roadway project is to focus the work on the areas that are being used now. Areas we're selling lots now, areas burials are occurring now. Not trying to build a road to nowhere or anything of the sort, really focus the areas on where people are working and visiting, frankly, right now. So,
Having people use the lanes and not just driving throughout the cemetery, which
Yes.
was starting to happen in places.
yeah. Helen's got a question.
The burial permits, do you issue them and collect the revenue and then send it to DHHS, or does the funeral home issue the burial permits?
Funeral home.
Okay, thank you.
This is probably also a good time to mention, the board approved a update to the cemetery rules last fall. You may recall those were part of the process last spring. There was a great deal of conversation about rates and costs and how do we try to right-size those costs for what we're actually spending on our cemeteries today. The board approved a pretty noticeable change in that rate structure. And that's largely why the revenue on the sale of lots, R-1202, has been increased to that degree. Again, there was a somewhat of a bump in this year because people were anticipating that change and want to get ahead of any potential changes, but I think there's an expectation that that trend of revenue will continue into the new year. And the lot sales have not tailed off tremendously. So I would like to get us to a point where we can, to say it pays for itself is a bit maybe foolhardy, but when you consider we have mowing costs somewhere else. But to try to get this budget to a place where it is a bit more of a net zero for what is existing within this budget. And then the other part that I think that deserves some conversation is the actual stone maintenance and cleaning. And that's something that the town hasn't really invested itself in time, but we've seen, there are a number of cemeteries that we have that it has been, though we've had great volunteer efforts over the years, it's not something that's really been engaged, so.
Is that limited to veterans, or is it everybody, all the stones?
So state law says we have to care for veterans' graves, but this would, beyond that. So for example, just take, for example, Seaview Cemetery. It's probably, our most viewed or visited cemetery. There is no money in this budget to take care of stone repair, aside from that $2,500. And I think, is there an expectation that some of that occurs? Perhaps there is. So that's something that has to be considered as we think about cemeteries in the future.
I mean, I think it's some of that at some point also, I'm assuming would be covered by the cemetery reserve. You'd be pulling out of that.
Yep.
Which I think we really ought to, I don't know if whatever is 38,000 or whatever, 39,000 almost, if I'm reading that right, for the cemetery reserve. If that's what we're thinking is sufficient for a rainy day fund or whatever for that department, then that's fine, we don't have to keep contributing, but if it costs $100,000 to clean stones,
No.
we may wanna
Yeah.
keep investing in that reserve account so that we have it
Yeah.
when it comes time.
I wanted to trim that back, honestly, in this budget, Clay. you may notice the cemetery trust fund revenue is the exact same number as the mowing, number. That's not by mistake. I think as long as we have that, we started using some of that money from that trust fund several years ago when we first got that contract with Farley that was so much higher than what we had anticipated. I'd like to think that we can maybe control that a little bit better. If we move down the road of having a part-time crew, we could trim that back considerably. That would be my hope.
So John, what's the difference between the cemetery trust fund and the cemetery reserve?
The trust fund is the money that we get for perpetual care goes into the trust fund, and we can't touch the initial amount of that that's deposited, but any earnings that are on that money, we can use that to offset cemetery operations. So that's what the trust fund is. The reserve is money that's been allocated through a budgeting process for specific purposes at one of the 6 or 7 cemeteries that we have.
What's the balance of the trust fund?
300 and something.
That's what I was
I think it's almost 400 actually.
Yeah. Depends on when the market,
Right.
what day the market was.
And with mowing going out of there, is there any, I assume there's no restriction, that's not gonna affect how we can use that trust fund money if we move mowing?
The trust fund money is very specific on what it can be used for, because like when you buy a lot, please correct me if I'm explaining this wrong, but when you buy a lot, you have to pay a perpetual care amount. The state dictates that the amount that you pay specifically for perpetual care, we turn around and have to safeguard that money. So what we do is we put it in an investment, and then any earnings that are made on that we can use to offset the.
But my question, I guess, is in the future, mowing is no longer a simple contract or
Correct.
whatever. We can still draw from the trust fund to subsidize our own in-house mowing services?
As long as we can clearly
Right. Say
indicate
this is
how
how much,
much
yeah.
money we are actually spending to mow that.
In regards to stone care, is that covered underneath trust funds?
I think that's one of the items that you can use.
And then is there any like special certification for stone repair?
Yes.
Meaning,
Over to your left, we
meaning
know more
where,
about that anyway.
where I'm going with it is meaning if we have, you say rainy day funds, but I'm thinking rainy day labor. Like,
Yeah.
can our own in-house public works employees go in and fill the time? I hear
I'm not
something.
trying
I
to,
hear
I'm
something.
trying to try to ignore you, Craig. I see Helen over your shoulder, and I'm
But
like,
I'm just
"Oh."
saying, like, that's maintenance. That's maintenance.
I think that's totally,
Totally legit.
yeah.
No. There are a fair number of people in the state who have been trained by the Maine Old Cemetery Association on the proper care and maintenance of gravestones. The leading expert that MOCA uses is a nationally known expert out of New York, Western New York. His fee is quite expensive. The Maine State Cemetery Preservation Commission, which I chair, is looking into doing workshops, on-site training workshops for municipal employees to do repairs. We've got a meeting on Thursday. We'll be talking to our handler from the state government as to whether we can actually do that. One of our requirements is education of the public and municipalities on the proper care. So, no, you don't want just anybody walking into your cemetery and putting a stone upright or resetting it or anything like that. You need to have an expert because you risk damage and there's liability issues.
And the right chemicals, Ellen.
Huh?
And the right chemicals.
Exactly.
Yes, and chemicals is not really a good word to use.
I mean, we did the Rockland, DAR did the Rockland Cemetery.
We
had
did
to use
Tolman
very
Cemetery.
special,
Yes, and that was Joe who led that. And that restoration on Tolman Cemetery was over $15,000. So, and that's,
Which is, you know, that's not a world we've lived in, but it's something that needs at least to be discussed.
ballpark's 500 to 1,000 to fix one stone.
Can I ask on the line 3,000, where it talks about the purchase and contractual services. This year's the 182,000. I assume that's the Farley mowing?
Yes, that's
And
right.
then next year's 104.
Correct.
Does that mean the 4 people we're gonna hire are gonna be done on a contractual basis? They won't be employees of the town?
No, so the 86,000 in that line, 3630, that's the end of that contract. That's the last 4 months of that mowing contract that's currently existing, Bill. And so that would only get us to the end of the mowing season this year, this summer. And then we would have a new mowing season we would need to fund with, under this concept, with labor, and that is in the buildings and grounds budget.
Our mowing contract runs on a calendar year instead of a fiscal year.
So this 86,000 is 100% Farley?
100%.
That basically from June to
It would be July, August,
Yeah.
September, October.
And then
And the next year's would be May. or
next
June.
year's is in a different department.
That's right.
Buildings and grounds.
So we're
Yep.
gonna see a bump up there
Yes,
commensurate with, okay.
yes.
How many employees you looking at to do the mowing next year?
I think 4 was the number. Mike put together the numbers that, initially, we were trying to figure out what department to put that in, so Mike did a lot. Mike's here, so certainly he can answer some questions about that. Now, I don't know you're all prepared to have that conversation, but Mike is probably as well versed in any of it as any of us.
We'll do buildings and grounds on Wednesday.
Involved.
Will Mike be here for the buildings and ground one, when we talk
I
about
think
mowing?
probably I will.
But if you had burning questions now, I didn't wanna, have to forget it, that's all.
Don't let grass grow under your feet.
The other item was the purchasing of the truck and the trailer for the mowers and so forth. Where does that?
Buildings and grounds.
That's all
It's
the
in
buildings.
building? Okay,
Yep.
all right, get there. Yep.
Okay. Great.
All right, anything else for cemeteries?
All set?
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
You're welcome.
Happy trails. And Liz, when
Are you
will,
heading upstairs?
and we have, Craig's going to dance. If, for those of you who don't know, some of you may remember we had a software that the town had purchased for categorizing and trying to keep track of all of these cemetery, all the data we have. And we have, Liz can,
Speaking of having Ren, it's
just
been.
take a victory lap on that if you could.
We have one cemetery complete, we have Rockville complete, we're hoping it will go live to our website in July. And basically, I think Helen, you'll like it. It's exciting. It was a lot of work. It was everything from plot card to any information that we have in the town for that family. Any permits, their disposition permits, it's all right there. When you click on that grave, it will show which ones are full, which ones are empty within a plot. So we have already begun West Rockport, and we're creeping up about a quarter of the way through that. But it's a lot of data entry, it's gonna be great to have it all in one place, so.
And this is a project, just so you all know, in terms of labor, when we're not sending out absentee ballots.
Right.
And those sort of
Right.
periods where taxes aren't collected, that's where a lot of that type of work is completed, so.
We went out and physically took pictures of
Yep.
the headstones to
There you go.
upload them. So it's been some work, but we're proud of it. So.
Yes, it should be. Thanks, Liz.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, if nobody else wants to go dance, let's go to page 157 or 161, depending upon where you want to go. Public Works. So this is a budget that is net increase of 6.2%, 6.23% over FY '26. There are a number of projects that are obviously, Public Works is obviously an area where there's a lot that isn't necessarily driven solely by labor. Labor is certainly a driver here. This department does include a portion, well, includes the entirety of the Director of Public Services position, which is effectively the engineer position, is the best way I can describe for those who we've discussed in the past this concept. And that position is 40% funded by the wastewater budget in this draft, 60% by the municipal budget. We have a series of projects that are within this budget, which are all on page 169. And it's very small writing, so my apologies, but to get it all in, that's the way you have to do it. But this is largely the work plan for FY '27. This is one that's heavily dependent upon prep work that's done this time of year, brush cutting, and so forth, moving through culvert replacement. We have proposed it here, 62 culverts to replace. That is a number that is not quite double, but considerably higher than what we had last year, which is why our culvert line is considerably higher than it was last year. There's also a gravel line, which is considerably higher. That's largely due to 3 different projects. One on Main Street, which is the sinkhole, I guess is the best way I can describe it, by the quarries out on Outer Main Street before you get to what was Goose River Greenery. Anyway, by the quarries there. And then we have 2 other gravel road issues, one on Chapel Road and one on Beauchamp Point Road. That's the majority, that's about $30,000 of that gravel budget. And as I said, it has, it's a considerable increase, largely because those are the roads that are going to see the gravel adjustment. The roads, in terms of paving, it's 30,363 feet of length of road to be paved, proposed in this budget. That is 7,653 less than what it would take to be on a 10-year paving plan. So we're now really, with what's proposed here, on a 12-year plan. Obviously, there's several streets which are not paved on this list, but obviously have significant improvements to them that are proposed. And certainly we can go through them. But largely, this list is these are roads that will be brush cut, culverts replaced, and then paved. This is the 2nd year of the Meadow Street project, so we had ground up the worst section of Meadow Street, largely from South Street to the diner, almost to the diner, just short of where the culvert is, that will be replaced as part of the stream crossing bond. And that will be paved all the way through to Route 17. And what else am I missing here? I think that's, in terms of paving, those are the high points. There are 3 sidewalk/crosswalk projects. Boy, sorry. We have a crosswalk out here in front of, on Central Street, in front of the hotel. Anyone, I think all of we are familiar with that crosswalk in that area. That was really a citizen request about safety and pedestrian safety. So that's been placed on there. There is a section of Russell Avenue, where the sharp bend on Russell Avenue, that sidewalk area between Mechanic and Winter Street, largely, in that sort of vicinity there. And then lastly, another pedestrian safety issue on Warrenton Street. Warrenton Street is, again, one of the roads that's due for pavement, had been for some years, and actually was put off. And that is a section of really enhancing the shoulder between the Samoset Resort and the sharp bend on Warrenton Street, for those familiar. Really, the entrance to Eastward is sort of that area. There's some shoulder there, and that was really a request for the number of walkers and bikers that are in that area to try to make that a little bit safer. So, those are the big projects.
John, wasn't Warrenton also involving the culverts there?
Thank you, John, thank you, yes. So the large culvert on Warrenton Street, for anyone who's been down to the beach there, there's that giant pipe. That pipe has a significant sag. There's been a great deal of concern that Mike's had over years, and you can certainly speak to it. But that was one of the areas addressed in our stream crossing bond that voters approved in November of '24. And so there's a drainage project that really extends from the intersection of Route 1 up to that pipe. That has been, that'll be part of that improvement. That will also impact the sidewalk that exists on Warrenton Street, and the need to effectively relook at that area. The Pathways Committee has met and looked at this, and they've started chewing this over. We're working with them on somewhat a complete streets policy to try to find better ways to manage pedestrian, bike in these areas where is it still the right fit? There are places where sidewalks existed previously. For those who don't know, there was a post office right there in Glen Cove. Post office closed many years ago, and largely that was the reason for sidewalks to exist. Well, sidewalk does the sidewalk need to exist? That's what Pathways was looking at. So that's a longer process, but we're in the middle of trying to get that drainage project complete as well. So,
And on the drainage on the cross pipe, just to mention, we're working with the engineers trying to slip that actual pipe versus dig that out totally, which is 20-something feet deep, probably at least, versus putting a box in that one. So hopefully we can slip that, put a pipe in it. It'll go from a corrugated culvert to a smooth bore pipe, which is still gonna allow it to flow at least the same amount of flow that it's doing now with being corrugated. So hopefully that's gonna save a fair amount of money as well.
Mike, when you say fair amount, are we in tens of thousands or where?
We're hopefully looking from like 80,000 versus 600,000.
Okay,
That's fine.
that's kind of what I thought,
Yeah.
so don't underestimate what you're talking about here.
I've got a question on the math on the paving plan.
Yeah.
How does it add up? If you look at
It's-
estimated
yeah.
cost and then the non-paving cost, and you've got the total estimated cost.
It looks like the
math ain't
total
mathing.
non-paving is double counted to me. I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
It would appear so.
What are we looking at?
Which item are you
so
looking
if
at?
you look at the last gray column says estimated cost on your paving cost. Oh, I'm sorry, page 169 on the paving plan. So you've got the column that says estimated cost in gray for the paving. Then you scroll over, you've got total non-paving costs. If you add those two columns together, they don't equal the total estimated cost. So
The total estimated cost is $1,207,933.
but then you've got it,
Right.
yeah, the 1,000,005.
The formula that
Yeah.
they put in included this twice.
That's why.
I mean, if you take 38,000 and 19,000 round up, you're looking at 60,000, but the estimated cost is 77,000 on the line for Beauchamp.
I just fixed it. If you look behind you, that's the.
Gotcha, okay. Does that work? That looks better. Now the math is mathing.
It's a good start.
There's a couple things in the supporting document I just want to point out so that hopefully less confusion. In the supporting documents on page 166, 3440, that particular line was cut, and it says Public Work currently does not own equipment to complete roadside mowing. We do own a piece of equipment, and that's why we were able to cut that line some. We try to do it as much as we can, buildings and grounds. If they have half a second, they work with us. If they come back an hour early, they'll hop in that machine, go out, start mowing the roads. And I think hopefully everybody will agree that the sides of our roads look pretty nice this year, and we're pretty cleaned up. So that was, just a typo that said we did not own it. On page 168, 7605, it says 275,000 for South Street intersection. That is not in this budget, so that 275 does not affect anything, because it's not in the budget. That
Which one are you
document.
on again, Mike?
7615.
Okay, got it.
I've got several questions. As long as we're on page 168, 76, 115, raising the crosswalk on Central Street, what,
So that was one of the things that John had talked about on safety, and, so right in front of the hotel.
yeah, I use that quite often.
Trying to slow traffic down. There's not a lot of area for signs in the sidewalk. We're gonna try as well to put, you know, one of the crosswalk signs in the middle of the road that bolt to the road.
Right.
But to get people's attention, we're gonna raise that
Like they did down in
roughly 4 inches,
Rockland
bring it out
by
like
the
10
fa-
feet on each side.
Yeah, down by the ferry, they did
Mark
that.
it so it's very
Yeah.
visible.
People hated that,
So
but, yeah.
that's what that's about. It's been a big safety concern for a number of people, so.
Oh, yeah. yeah.
Didn't Rockland just get rid of all their raised
Yes, they
sidewalks?
did.
They raised theirs up so much that they were hanging the low boys up. You have to be careful. in
And they
how
built
much
them
you
out
do
of
it.
brick, right? I mean, they were,
You know, they look like brick, yeah.
They did, I think some of them they actually may have stamped. but-
yeah. but they had it
You don't see them anymore.
But they didn't end up they lowered a couple of them, and now they just got rid of them completely, didn't they?
I don't know that they got rid of all of them completely, but.
They
I-
did
it-
on the main street,
It's pretty flat through there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most of that had to do with just general maintenance of them. They're expensive to maintain, and they also hang up the plows pretty good, and they do a poor job getting over there with the plows.
I mean, I made a comment to John when he brought that up. The way the parking is right now, the parking is right up to the crosswalk.
And
If you hash that out and give some space, you're gonna have a more visible crosswalk there
You will.
without having
With-
this big hump in the middle of the road. And trust me, the crosswalk sign in the middle of the road is gonna get mowed over.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you
I-
saw the one that we had at our place.
well, there's not the width there, I wouldn't think, to.
Yeah, it's flat.
Where are you talking about?
but
Right in
So,
front of the hotel.
right in front of the hotel down here.
I guess with where I stand, I know that. I've had so many people ask and tell me, well, we need to put it there. I'm willing to try it, but yes, it is gonna get, but I don't wanna, you know, people to feel like he just doesn't wanna put that up there.
Do you want to do a betting pool on how many days it lasts?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and
I-
wasn't that crosswalk part of the VPI project?
Yep.
What was the solution that came out of that?
And we may be able to raise it up, you know, a little bit with some paint, with not going, you know, crazy. I've started to talk to the engineers about it and ways to do it, and that was one of the things that come up, but we haven't, I don't know that we've settled on an actual height. But I do agree with Clay that, yes, you gotta be very careful, or they got more headaches than they're worth.
Is there a height in the VPI?
No.
No, I don't think it was raised.
No, it
Ryan, do you
wasn't.
have any information on?
What Kim described with the
Yeah.
parking being pulled away, that was part of the.
Have a line of sight.
If we pitch that a little bit, certainly that is the time. I mean, we're not meeting the state requirements on what needs to be. We're probably gonna lose 4 parking spots when that's all done.
With-
Cause
With
'cause you got
pulling back on either side.
pulling back, so
How
it's-
far back on either side?
to me, the criteria area is supposed to be at 20 feet. Do I
On
think
either
we?
side?
Yeah.
Yeah, what
So
is-
do I think we could squeeze it to maybe 15? Cause we got nothing at the moment.
No,
What
I
does the
know.
state
I
law
drove
say?
through and I'm like,
Yeah, doesn't the state law specify?
They have a
10?
criteria of 20 feet is what they.
Right, yeah,
say.
that's what I thought it was. And while we're talking about no parking spaces, thank you for the signs, no parking here between the signs, except nobody can figure out what's between the signs.
Between the
In
signs.
front of
So
Need
can we
one in the
please
middle?
paint the no parking areas? And please, would the police please enforce them?
Okay, I think we should, I don't think that should be at the budget
Well,
committee.
it's
I
line
understand. You have it.
5380, painting crosswalks and no parking spaces. And on the trees, 3648, do we do all the tree work, or do we occasionally have to hire somebody for the really big, tall stuff?
We have to hire somebody for the tall stuff.
Okay,
We do just as much as we can, but some stuff we just,
Or a lot of times, you'll collaborate with the one one doing the cutting, so we'll assist with removing the wood.
Yeah.
Which will reduce the amount of the cost.
Almost 100% of the time, they'll show up, do the work of aerial, and as soon as it hits the ground, we truck it off and take care of it, so.
Ever sell any of it to neighbors or give it away for
We
firewood?
do have some at the shop that can be taken that's in the pile.
Mike, I got a question or two. So, John, I think you said we're now shifting effectively to a 12-year cycle on roads.
Well, I haven't, so the goal was still 10, because but the amount that we have budgeted here and last year is effectively a 12-year cycle.
So my question is, how does that affect your thinking, Mike, as you think about maintaining the roadways and keeping them up to standard?
Is maintaining them, we're still gonna do the same, you know, ditching water runoff, get the ditch to where it's alleviating as much water in the base as we can. Hopefully, that's gonna push the maintenance of our roads out some. But if a road comes up in 10 years or 9 years, if it's gonna cost us money to fix it versus waiting, we need to look at that road. I mean, I guess the plan, if we have a 10 to 12-year plan and it's 12, we still need to watch the road to what, you know, is going on with that surface.
Yeah, so you had a good example of that, because I think you and I talked about Cross Street.
Right.
A case in point. Can you go through that a little bit to just give everybody your perspective on it?
On Cross, there were sections that weren't bad, there were sections that were alligator cracking, and there's a percentage of what you want to look at with the road of what's broken down and what's not broken down. And when you get to the point of alligator cracking, if you got a small section, you can dig that section out, try to repair the base, because usually the base is what's causing the problem of those spots. That road was just getting a lot of wheel tracking as well, which was breaking down, causing more alligator cracking. And it also took, so I try to skimp as much as I can on a base, so we'll drag a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch to get your road base back. That was the worst road as far as taking base to get it back to where it should be. So say that was 50 tons, it took like 75 ton to get it back to a base that you could surface to get your 1/4 of an inch pitch.
So what would the damage have been had we waited on that?
If you wait on a road like that, you're gonna lose it, and then you're paying 2 to 3 times as much to reclaim it. You're going into one season, putting a base on it, then you're waiting a season and going to the next season to surface it. You can grind those, and some people do, but I find you get wheel tracking in the new pavement, because that really should be ridden out for a season, even though it's rolled.
How many years you been doing this, Mike?
I think this is going on 13 for the town.
All right, so you know a bad road when you see one?
I've seen a couple.
Okay. All right. I have other questions, John, and maybe
Yeah.
this is more directed at you. the
Sure.
Public Works Director, you and I have talked about this before, about how we're gonna pay for that position, or, you know, kind of walk us through the details of
Yeah.
how that's gonna be justified, and what do we expect out of adding that position?
Yeah, no, you're right. So there's two big pockets that are sort of going into creating the hole, effectively the budget hole that I'm filling with this position. One is 3095, which is professional services engineering. We had a $65,000 cost in this existing year budget that we're not gonna be continuing into the forthcoming year that's proposed. So that's the $65,000 gap. The other piece is the revenue side, which is,
So when you say, if I can just.
Yep, go ahead,
I'm having
yeah.
a little hard time getting through the drums upstairs.
I know, I'm sorry, I've got the congas
So try
going.
to stay by the microphone if you could.
Yeah.
So you're saying in the 65,000 that we're going to realize that kind of savings, or
Yes.
how much are we gonna cut into that number?
100%.
100%?
100%. So we're using all of that 65,000 towards this position.
And that was line number what?
That was line number 3095.
You spent a little bit, John, already on that.
We spent 1,200, I know, yeah. But, yeah.
And that same line was 20,000 in FY '25.
Yeah.
And 13,000 in '24.
Yeah.
And 4,000 in '23.
It's been a little bit of an up and down in that one, and largely because who has handled the engineering for the town might have varied from department to department. Some of that might have been in the town manager's budget. I'm not saying if we went through and looked at all engineering and said, oh, this is where it is. Also, it's very, very much project dependent.
A
So-
lot of the engineering we had done in those timeframes were FEMA related, so those were reimbursed to us and weren't expensed to this budget.
So they still were incurred, but they
They
were
were,
covered by FEMA.
correct.
And to add to that, I think there were also engineering costs that were included into the budget line 7605 road construction. That's the area where we have had engineering costs over the years, and they've been included in those costs historically as well. So last year was the first year we identified those projects and put them in a line, because those projects really stood out. What I see is, and I don't want to deviate too much from your question, John, so if I can stop or I can go on to the piece of this that I want to just mention, is that I look at what the success the town of Camden's had in a number of different areas, but their Gould Street project is one. While I don't entirely love the bump out at the bottom and how difficult it is to pull onto Gould Street, that's my own personal little gripe. That's a project that at one point I believe was estimated to cost over 1.3 million. From what my understanding in talking with town of Camden employees, that project cost less than 500,000. And that was done with the Public Works Director and their engineer working together to design and devise a plan. Those are the types of solutions I want us to be able to accomplish here in Rockport. Because we talk about having to do things better and having to do things more efficiently. We need to have the technical know-how to join up with the experience to be able to put together a plan that's allow us to do more with spending less. That's the only way we're going to get out of this mess that we've found ourselves in. So that's an important, I think, experience point for us to jump off.
Are you saying there's a new position though in Mike's department?
Yeah, oh yeah, this
Where
is,
is that?
yeah, so it's within Department of Public Works wages 2012, this is that top line. But it's the Department of Public Services, and this director position would work in conjunction with Mike, work in conjunction with Harbor, work in conjunction with wastewater, work in conjunction with public buildings and grounds, oversight of department goals, department finances. There would be a two-pronged effort, just as you see in the town of Camden. I think, Billy, I think you were at the meeting we went to two years ago when Camden had a presentation about wastewater. I think you were there, yes. And I was so impressed with the way that both the Public Works Director and their engineer worked hand in hand to really guide us through, all of us who are lay people largely in that world, through what the challenges of their collection system, and then of course they have a treatment plant. We don't really have that heft in-house. What we do is we pick up a phone and pay at a per hour rate for that experience. And I think we can do that far better and far more efficiently by having that expertise in the house. The FEMA experience alone was one where we had a difficult time getting even a letter from the engineers we've worked with for years that just provided FEMA a very basic layout of what we needed to accomplish to start the process of getting reimbursement. That's something that we shouldn't have to do at a per hour rate to an engineering firm. That's holding back staff, that's holding back our reimbursement, that's holding back the project. And so the two-headed approach and two-pronged approach that I think we need to be able to tackle these issues. And I'll just say, on a sort of related to the wastewater front, that's really what drove a lot of these conversations. Town of Rockport has done as good as it could with the people in varied and disparate positions to help manage a wastewater issue. But we have, within this room right now, in terms of employees, we have Orion who has a hand in wastewater, Mike has a hand in wastewater, I have a hand in wastewater, Megan has a hand in wastewater. And the problem and concern with that is with so many different fingers in the pot, it's very difficult for issues to get resolved easily and efficiently for the taxpayer. And it also limits our ability and my ability to really inform the board about the issues that are occurring and how to manage them. I've learned far too much on the Bill Bowes and Bob Colmars and these groups of residents who have been incredibly helpful. But we have a collection system and we are doing everything we can at a billable rate. And that cost is something, whether it's in the wastewater budget or it's in this budget, all Rockport residents are paying in one way, shape, form, or another. And I'd rather have clarity and sunshine on it, but I think we also could stand to have that heft in the room to be able to find more creative ways. We've got an incredible amount of infrastructure to solve, issues to solve, and we can't task force the solution. I think we can support task forces with people who can work with people and residents who have interest. But right now, we've been doing a very difficult job as these matters become more complicated. So instead of really managing problems, we've been task forcing them out. And so it's not an efficient way to operate, and I've been just very frustrated in not having the answers we need in-house. And I think it's costly for us.
So John, on line 2012, we show the budget this year 736,
Yep.
790, and next year we show 936. How much of that amount is going to be for a new position?
So, let's see, the wages and benefits, so we have, sorry, was it 130?
130.
Yeah, so we put 130 for the wage, and then the benefit was, we'd estimated 70. We have not yet we have not hired anyone for that position, so it's still an estimate at that point. I was hoping we would be further down the road at this point where I could reduce those numbers, but
So you're talking about $200,000 for the position?
that's the estimate, yeah.
And we're under the professional services, you mentioned 3095.
Yep,
Engineering.
yep.
You think about taking some of that from that, towards that?
Yeah, so we wouldn't fund that in this proposed budget, so that's a zero. I hear you guys get the feedback too.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm not losing it here.
Okay.
So we have the,
That's fun.
Somebody online?
No,
Yeah.
that was me, that was.
okay, we're good?
Yeah, we're
All right,
good.
just making
Sorry.
sure. So, your question, Bill, so we have 3095, which is professional services engineers. I'm not putting any money into that line because I'm rededicating basically those needs into this position.
This
So you
position
don't
will
have
do
to
that.
hire anybody outside to do engineering work?
Not from this budget, no.
Okay, where else is it gonna come from then?
Well, we'll have some engineering, we'll need,
And we have the wastewater revenue.
yes, yeah, we have the
So if you look on the
wastewater
revenue side, we've got almost 81,000 coming from
Yep.
wastewater.
But, John, the reason that 65 is going away, in your own notes, you say because we don't have any projects.
That's right. We don't have any projects dedicated to those needs, no. So we had dedicated 2 separate projects to that 65,000 in the existing year budget. One was to reorganize, well, actually, it was reorganize 2 separate intersections. We have some of that money will be spent not to the tune of 65,000, and we're not going to put that money into the 27 budget to have that work done again. We won't require those projects.
So John,
So what
it's-
sorry, Bill, let
Go
me
ahead.
try to finish, get an answer
Yep.
here. So we're not gonna have these projects next year?
We've already completed them.
Okay, so the 65,000 we don't have any other place to
Right,
spend 65,000.
that's exactly right.
So we're really not saving it by virtue of adding this position, we're just,
We could just be saving it anyways by
Yeah.
not adding the position.
Well, not necessarily, because we got all those stream crossing projects that need to be done.
We're going to have engineering.
We'll
is
have
that-
projects, but we don't have to fund them because they'll be within this position. Right.
Okay, so
They're
there are
still
projects.
engineering.
There
There are
are going to be
projects.
projects.
Yes, and they're
And
gonna
we are
project-
gonna need engineering for them.
We will.
For which we're going to be able to do the
Right.
engineering in-house now.
Right, that's
Okay,
right.
Thank you. And we think that had we not had that position, we might have to pay as much as 65,000
Yes,
to get that service.
that's right.
So
Okay,
now we're,
that's.
Got it.
we're now gonna pay 200 though. Usually, we're not gonna pay 200 instead of the 65, right?
No, but there's, remember, Bill, I think are you accounting for the 50% that's going to be allocated over on wastewater? So that's a completely different
That's actually
conversation.
40%.
40.
I think we did a
Yeah,
it would
60/40
be-
split.
Is it 60?
We thought it was 50/50, but,
It's 50 in
It
the
says
notes
50 in the
and
notes, I think.
40.
yeah, I thought it was
Yeah.
50/50 is
But
what the
80 over
wastewater
200.
did, what we did
Okay.
at the time
So-
of
So,
wastewater.
is that the 50% you're talking about? Yeah, so it's 40% going to wastewater?
Yeah, then my next question is gonna be, where is is it Woodward and Curran
Yeah.
that currently
That's right.
manages our, so where is that number in this?
So that's part of the wastewater budget. So that's a separate budget, a separate process. Yeah, not listed within this at all. The first task of this person's position, this is why such a high percentage of their salary is really dedicated to this need, is to explore the options for the town to potentially replace Woodward and Curran, whether it's to hire our own employees, to contract with neighboring towns, but to provide that analysis in time for the wastewater budget approval by the select board or the wastewater commissioners this summer.
I just was curious, you're gonna charge, again, the wastewater budget.
That was approved in last year's budget, was
The,
part-time
right, the
position.
funding allocation for this position is in this current wastewater budget.
But so I understand it, and maybe this goes to your question, is 100% of this individual's compensation in this budget?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Well,
And then
And
there's,
then
That's
show
why I'm
the
asking.
offsetting revenue, you've got to
Yeah.
keep going down to the revenue side.
right. So page
Wastewater.
163,
Right,
and you go, sorry, just
R09.
R0905.
wastewater income.
Yep.
Yeah,
John,
Well, I was just gonna say, having been on the, let's say, the voluntary side of the engineering efforts in this town for a few years, along with Mr. Colmar, who's here in the back, I 100% agree this is needed. I mean, when we have technical issues within the town, like wastewater or whatever it is, and you're putting it on the backs of folks who don't have that expertise, they don't understand it. You can make decisions that, you know, aren't necessarily in the interest of the town or the most efficient way to go about doing it. I couldn't agree more. Now, I'm not gonna speak to what sort of efficiencies this individual could bake into the overall cost profile as they get into it. But we need the expertise, we just do. And I don't know how much of their engineering expertise we think we're gonna need versus their management expertise. And I'm kinda curious what your thought is on that.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of management expertise needed. I mean, I think we talk about an engineer, and that's, I think there's a technical viewpoint that's missing from the conversations, department head conversations and presentations before the select board. But I also think there's management needs that go into that. I think there's support for, putting together, the road plan and working together with Mike, working together. We have, my goodness, look at what we have right now at the harbor. It's an incredible lift to pursue a harbor strategic plan of that magnitude. That's an administrative need as well. So yes, there's engineering need, but there's an administrative need to oversee a project of that size.
so can you pause there for a minute, John?
Yeah.
Because we've got Mike here, we've got that project looming, like, how does that
And I know
feel
Steve's been
to
trying
you,
to ask a
Mike,
question here.
that-
Before we move on to harbor stuff, Steve's
at
been
some
trying
point,
to
I
say
just wanna get-
something.
I know you've,
I'm sorry, Steve.
That's
I'm
okay.
just
It's all right.
taking
I'm in the
advantage of
corner.
opportunity.
sorry, I didn't want to, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
He's been holding longer.
all right, don't worry about it, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of all going off of the same question, which is, so who would manage that harbor project if it came into our lap? where would that land?
This person.
Would it be on your no, if we didn't do this position, would it be
Oh.
on your desk, John? Would it be on yours, Mike? Or would we have to hire an outside?
We would have to hire an outside engineer for that project, no doubt in my mind. And then I would foresee, you know, us working with that engineer, trying to keep the amount of site visits down as much as you could, making sure things were going, you know, watching the project. So I would say it would be a joint.
But you don't have the bandwidth probably to take that on,
Right.
and you don't have the bandwidth. Okay, so just, that was.
And the harbor master, I will
And
speak
we
for her,
also,
but yes.
on the wastewater side, to Bill's point, you know, we've got a deadline looming with,
Mm-hmm.
well, we've got a 5-year agreement with Camden that we're now, what, a year change
into that.
into?
Right.
And we have no plan. Not even on a drawing board of any kind, even in somebody's mind, as far as I'm aware.
No, you're 100% right.
It really scares me. Because I feel like the clock is ticking, we're rolling forward. This position, I think, on the wastewater side, I'm seeing as priority one to get a long-range wastewater plan that we can all sign off on and
Yes.
feel confident about, so that we're not being held, you know, hostage to a, you know, negotiation that we're not gonna like. So, again,
Yeah.
so I'm sorry, Steve, you can take it from there.
I don't even know where to start. So I'm on page 276, which is the org chart. I'm way back at, okay, this is a full-time position that's gonna sit where in the org chart, reporting to whom?
Me.
Okay, so on the org chart, we have, this is 276, I'm sorry, I might have said that wrong. So, and who would report to this person?
So we have the Public Works Director, the Buildings and Grounds, the Harbor Master, and the wastewater, which is not even on the org chart.
So
But that is
those
the
four people.
Four reports. We're
Okay.
reducing by 4 reports to 1. Because,
Right, we're reducing 4 reports to you.
to me. And,
Right.
right,
Okay.
but that's somewhat of the challenge, and this was sort of an ongoing dialogue with the select board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 direct reports to me as department heads.
Yeah.
And the challenge is to ensure that we're getting the adequate support and direction and dialogue with the Public Works Director, the Harbor Master. It's not happening the way I
Yeah, no.
want it to see happen. That's what, so
I'm
I was
really
looking to try
into
to.
just the structural, I get the argument.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm convinced yet, but I get what you're trying to solve. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to fit it in.
Yeah,
I'm a big one-pager guy. I would appreciate like a job description.
Yeah.
And like, these are the jobs
Yep.
that this person's gonna do. This
You
is
got
the
it.
funding that this person's expertise would replace
Yep.
that we think we otherwise would have spent.
Gotcha.
Like, I just need, because again, we run into this problem with this budget where stuff's tucked back and forth and half is
Sure.
on wastewater and this one's over here and positions are split. So
that's helpful though.
so
Thank
it's
you.
not, and in the list on the next page, 277, 278, which has all
Yep.
the staff listings,
Yep,
it's not here either, or am I missing it? The personnel changes on
No.
278, 279?
no, it's not in here.
Okay.
That's inconsistent.
And we think salary-wise, this is a professional so we're gonna be looking for someone who has this kind of engineering expertise and is also gonna manage how many, have 4 direct reports who in turn manage another dozen people
Yeah.
more, probably.
It's a heavy lift.
So it's a management job as much as it is
That's,
an engineering job.
that's the problem. That's just to give you the heads up on the one pager. The job description doesn't fit on one page, right? Because of
Well-
that, right? Because it's a heavy lift here.
And do you have a model from another town for a position like this? Is there somebody somewhere that's doing this job that you?
I mean, it's a
Because
bit
if
of.
the job's gets too long, then is this a job that is even capable
Well,
of being done by?
yeah, I think it's an amalgamation of 2 different things. I think what I'm seeing in Camden, what I see in Rockland. So in Rockland, they have a Department of Public Services that oversees oversees the dump, oversees their Public Works Department. So they have multiple departments sort of interfacing with one titular head. In Camden, you have an engineering person who is in conjunction with their public works director, who is also a dam agent and runs the solid waste transfer station. So again, everyone has their own little way of doing this. City of Bath probably is the one that's most like this, although they do have their own landfill, but they have a similar sort of setup of trying to consolidate and provide engineering from this position. They just recently replaced their individual, I think it was within the last 6 months. And, I think it's been, it's a circumstance, I think, where it's been very individualized, town to town. They find that someone who has the right set of skills, and they sort of push them into these areas. And I think that's admirable. Part of the issue, though, is, and we've put the ad out, we've got some interest, we've had some bites and some handful of interest with that job description. But I too have the fear, is it too much? Are we asking too much from one person?
Yeah,
I
just to be
share
clear what
that
the
concern.
problem is that we're trying to solve, because I'm
Yeah.
hearing a couple of different things. So there's a
Yeah.
management challenge in terms of direct reports to you and
Yeah.
capacity of the team.
Yeah,
And then, there's this technical skill we need because we have the wastewater project, which is
Yeah.
a defined project that will have a beginning and an end,
Yeah.
presumably.
yeah.
And the harbor do we anticipate that we're just gonna have an endless succession of big projects like these that are gonna require this type of engineering expertise, as opposed to,
I
let's
see.
just change their org chart
Yeah.
and everybody report to him? Or,
Yeah.
like if, like, I
Yeah.
don't wanna, I feel like we're conflating two challenges here from a management point of view, which is, do
Yeah.
we need technical expertise, or do we need some better information flows and some better
Yeah.
decision flows and these kinds of things, and throughput, and like, I'm.
Well, I want to just interject, because every year we put $1 million, $1.2 million into road paving. And we don't have the expertise. We don't know how, Mike's a good on-the-ground expert on roads, but we spend a lot of money on third-party contractors for roads. And my sense has been that we don't know whether we're getting good work or not good work. We do our
But
best under the
That's a
circumstances.
management problem. If we're hiring contractors and we don't know whether they're doing good work or not, that's a problem.
Well, but they don't have our employees do not have the engineering technical expertise to really sort of sort out the road project itself. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but as we get into meetings with other towns on issues, we realize that we've got one hand tied behind our back because we don't have in-house expertise at the level we need it.
Let me just say, to your point, on the engineering, like how often do we need their PE stand? It's not gonna be much, okay? 20%, that's just my own world according to me. But to the management side of it, I think that is important. Just the work that myself and Mr. Colmar, we're the ones overseeing the harbor project right now. We wrote a request for proposal to hire an engineer to do the design. The estimated probable cost on the project on just the working waterfront side is $4.5 million, and the public side here in Marine Park, it's probably closer to $5 million, okay? And you got Bob and I writing requests for proposals, and we've done hundreds to thousands of them, but we're volunteers in the town, okay? And when this stuff comes in, we don't have the in-house expertise to be able to look at it and say, I understand that. Instead, you're relying on, old codgers that are forgetting more stuff every day than we learn, okay? Same thing with the wastewater side of things, the negotiations that you had to go through with Camden. Setting aside some of the other cha-cha, the technical side of that, there were a lot of complexities there. We don't have that ability, and it's hurting us. We're not looking, now, in the case of the harbor projects, we're gonna fund them with not town money fundamentally. Someone still needs to look at it and talk to them. Right now, Woodard and Curran really does our wastewater engineering for us without a whole lot of direction. Orion, he's good, he's great, he's at the back of the room, sorry. He's graded all the time. Yeah, exactly. But the point is that, you know, when we talk to Brent Bridges or somebody at Woodard and Curran and say, you know, what's the right answer? Brent may have his own version of what he thinks the right answer is based on his experience, but he doesn't live here. And so he doesn't know the little nuances that, you know, we ought to be looking at this or that, or, you know, change it this way, et cetera, et cetera. So, to your question, I think it is 20% hard actual engineering. The rest of it's just knowing how to get something done in a way that bakes out of their expertise and their learning.
Do we have a job description? for this?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
do. It's on the website, Bill. It's been published. I'd love to just have Mike check in on some of this, because I think we've got somebody with a lot of experience here who hasn't said a word about this position, and it's gonna affect him directly. So among my questions, Mike, if you're looking, say over on the wastewater side, where things are a little easier and clearer to see perhaps, most of our work is contracted out to Woodard and Curran.
Right.
With this position, can you sort of ballpark what you think we might save by having the capacity that John is seeking in-house?
I guess I've not been involved in a part of this, so I don't know some of the answers. Looking from the outside, looking in, if he's gonna take control of everything with wastewater, you're definitely gonna save money. Are you gonna hire somebody that's a manager and an engineer that knows wastewater? He's probably gonna have to look at whether it be Woodward and Kern if they weren't involved. He's not gonna have the time, I don't think, to design a system. But he certainly will get down that path knowing where that system has to be and what it needs to look like with his degree in engineering.
So ballpark as best you can, what does that mean in savings percentage-wise?
I guess it's all according to me for what we would have for projects. Whatever that number is, Woodward and Kern, that John can answer, is that gonna be gone from the slate and he's gonna be filling that? That probably is a fair amount, a number that he would be absorbing. There wouldn't be a charge to the town.
Yeah, okay, now take it over to the municipal town side of it. Talk about how we bid out our road work, how would this affect what we do there?
I think, you know, he's gonna have the degree in engineering, whether he's been involved in paving for 10, 12, 15 years. I have no idea, because I don't know who would be hired. A lot of that is, you know, seeing it done, knowing what's right, knowing what's wrong, knowing the temperatures, knowing your mix, knowing what the wrap is. I'm not sure what he's gonna know as far as getting some of the projects done. That there's definitely projects that an engineer needs to oversee with Public Works. A lot of the stuff for the road base. With that being said, we've been fortunate through our engineers on a lot of stuff. Anything that gets into technical, I make sure we're on the right track. They're giving advice and haven't given advice and not charged us. Is there more that could be done? Yes. Do I think your number of 20% of what they're gonna do for actual drawing and writing is right on? I think you're really close with what they're gonna be able to look at.
You know, and the world is filled with engineers who design stuff and people that build stuff. And there's an inherent conflict there all the time. So the best engineers that you're gonna have to find is the one that knows your job, you know, to some extent. Otherwise, you have people that design things that can't be built.
I've talked to Dave in Camden a fair amount, because they do have, their engineer oversees 100% wastewater. Does he design? I'm not sure if he designs. It's something simple I'm sure he could come up with on the right track. Working with Public Works, he wants nothing to do hardly with what goes on with Public Works, with the exception of designing and signing off on this is what it looks like. And that's where, this is what it needs to be, but we'll check a little bit and be involved partially, but Dave said he's involved. They're involved 50-50 on his project, basically, is what's working in Camden for that.
Dave's involved with 50% of the
So if he has a sidewalk, they both work together on what they should think it should look like.
Who's the "they" in that conversation?
Dave St. Laurent,
Yeah,
the Public Works Director, and their engineer.
their engineer,
Yeah.
which is an
Because-
outside, or is it on staff?
that's
He's,
just
he's
in-house.
in-house that works
Okay.
with Dave, and he works overseeing
Okay, and then,
wastewater.
and I guess then I jump to my next question, which Midco Solid Waste gets basically a director allocated from the town of Camden. It's only $70,000. In fact, the assistant director makes more money than the director does in the budget at Midco Solid Waste, which I find hilarious. But it tells you how good it is of a deal for Midco Solid Waste. But the question is this enough money to afford somebody at this level? You know, I mean, we might not even be budgeting anywhere close enough from what I'm hearing.
And we'll find out when we get the inquiries.
Well, what do we think Camden is paying for the services of somebody like Dave?
I'm not sure what he's paid.
Yeah, okay. Well, I know 70,000 of it's over on Midco Solid Waste. I don't know what the allocation is. Megan, do you have that information?
I think
Okay.
it's 60,
60%?
no, 60,000, 61.
Okay, well,
I'm on the board over there, so
all right, I've got the budget here, I'll check it, but
I'm sure you.
I'd just be curious what that allocation
We
percentage
think it's
is.
about 40% of his time,
We think it's about 40,
of Dave.
yeah.
And then he's also got Public Works in Camden, he's also got the wastewater plant in Camden. So he's wearing a bunch of hats.
Right, he's spread out over three different budgets,
He is.
yeah, okay. All right, moving on.
So this position is posted right now, but it's not funded, or it's contingent on the
It's funded by wastewater right now,
100%.
100% through June 30.
Right.
Okay. Now, why can't that, I mean, and if this doesn't go through, then what?
Well, we haven't hired anyone, so obviously that helps, but, then I suppose the wastewater commissioners would have to consider what they wish to do with the remainder, but this is certainly a position that's designed to help, if not a majority, a substantial portion of this person's time is on municipal budget needs, harbor, public works, buildings and grounds. So it changes the entire dynamic if you didn't have any funding in this budget.
And if thinking about the Gould Street experience in Camden, I mean, part of the issue, I think, as we've looked at this position is we don't know what could be saved if we had the right person sort of overseeing these projects. And if there is the opportunity, if we're seeing an $800,000 savings, I mean, in some ways, we're sort of running things in the town, on a penny wise, pound foolish. We're not making the decisions about how to staff in a way that allows us to achieve long-term cost efficiencies. And that's what this position is about. And we can try it. And if it doesn't, if it turns out, I mean, it's about finding the right person, and you don't know till they walk in the door.
Right, but then this position is created, and one of the things we've learned from this budget is that if a position is created here, it lasts forever, it never goes away. The ratchet only goes in one direction. If you look at the historical data, we had 26 full-time employees in FY '19. We now have, this says 43, but now as I understand, it's 44 full-time, right, is what that should say. I mean, I just don't know at what point I mean, how many more people do we have to hire to save money? It can't be that every position just saves us money and saves us money and saves us money and saves us money. Like, I
Well,
just don't.
8 of those positions were EMT paramedics, and that wasn't designed to save money, that was designed to save lives.
Okay, that's 8, but we were at 26 in 2019.
Are there other services that have changed over the years? I haven't been into this that long, but I would assume that there are other services that are being done now that maybe weren't being accomplished so well.
That's right. I mean, we have the Planning and Community Development Director, we'll get to that later tonight. But you see the grants we get as a result of that position. So it depends on how you want to approach operation of the town and whether we're interested in, this approach with this engineer position is a cost-saving methodology. Now, whether we don't, that argument does not exist for every employee we hire. Some of those have a job that just needs to be done. And during this time, more and more requirements are coming from the state as to what the town has to do, how it has to be in compliance. And sometimes that has required a new position. This particular position is about looking at a way to flatten that curve and get a handle on what we're doing, both in the Public Works Department, Buildings and Grounds, which really used to be part of Public Works, the harbor. We've now got a lot of, we have a $2 million grant. We have a lot of potential costs and grants available for that harbor, but we need the expertise in-house. It has not worked to go to outside engineering firms. We missed the ball on various paving projects because we can't get the engineering done in time. I mean, there's sort of a litany of things that over time have cost the town more money than if we were investing in the right person.
Is it reasonable to look at Orion's department and have that as a model for the engineer in the sense of hand in many different directions, different projects, as well as grant money and
Yeah,
and that sort of
yeah,
thing?
I think there's a lot of similarities in there, and I think in fact, I said this to Orion when we were sort of getting the, job description put together. I said, I think we need a partner for you. We need a partner for you to be able to go out and find opportunities to pay, to get the design and the explanation of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, put it to paper, and be able to have him go out and see where those funds are available. And we saw it already with, just 2 weeks ago, we got the $270,000 grant from DOT for the design of the Route 90 path. That's been talked about for 30 years. I mean, that's before our time on the select board, Jeff. That was something we talked about. It's ever since the schools were out there, it's been a conversation point. But I think in the same way, the way that the conversation changed, because you have someone who's looking at those problems on a full-time capacity, I think that's what you could say the same about how we're spending money and spend it more wisely. You find it more wisely and you spend it more wisely. And I think we have to be different how we're doing it, because the same old methods, just as we've sort of talked about, are not going to work.
John, did I hear you say this new position will report directly to you?
Yes. Yep.
To Steve's point, have we put down on a piece of paper exactly, we're talking about savings, and we
No, I
talked about
think we
this in the
should do
past,
that.
how much we're gonna save with new positions and so forth. Can we see, or is it out there already, what is the money we're gonna save as a town because of this position?
No, I don't think I don't have a document that looks like that right now, but I think Steve described, what he found helpful, and I think we can put something together. In the same way we somewhat did that with the police position that we sent out today. I think we can sort of lay some of that out, send you the job description and all that goes with it, so you have a clearer idea of that.
I mean, not as much as the job description, but exactly
Yeah.
what are we gonna save money-wise, the town, if we have this new position
Yeah.
in place? That's what I'm saying.
I think the bulk of the savings, though, are not items that I would say were, it's the next Gould Street. That's the goal of this, is the next Gould Street in Rockport, which could be, frankly, we've been talking quite about Rockville Street. Rockville Street is a street that has been paved, I don't know how many times, and it keeps coming apart, and it keeps cracking up, and it's a continual issue. I think it's our longest paved road, single paved road, in terms of how we budget that. We need to find a better way to do that. That's one, to your point though, Bill, that's where we have to receive those savings.
Yeah, but I mean, to that one project, I mean, you can't justify a new position
No.
based on Rockville Street.
No,
So
but,
what are the things long-term that we're gonna save money on, that's all?
well,
And what are the problems we have now that we're trying to solve? That's what I can't, I can't, so I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing, we're doing a great job on the roads, except the roads, when we have private contractors do them, don't hold up. So we're not doing a good job supervising contractors who are doing this work. Is that part of the problem? I don't know what the problem is. I get that engineers are expensive. I get
Yep.
we're gonna need some engineers.
Yep.
I get that we've got budgets for engineers. I
Yep.
get that.
Yep.
But what I'm hearing something more about, like, we are not effectively getting these things done because we don't have the right people doing them.
Yeah,
Is that
no-
accurate?
No, I don't think it's about not getting them done. I think it's a question of can we do them better? And I think we can do them better.
In
I
what
think,
sense?
And more cost effective.
yeah, in what sense? I think we can have better budgeting. I think we can plan for our work better. I think our stormwater management is a huge cost that we run into with every project. I think we can handle that better. We have these box culverts that we have to put out to have engineered, and those costs and managing those projects, we put a $3.4 million project out to bond that our voters approved. Mike is fighting tooth and nail in on top of him trying to do all the other duties he's got to try to manage those projects at the same time of managing staff and managing plowing and all that goes with that. We have 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. It is a lot. It is many things. And that's the problem with municipal government, is we can't just do one thing. We have to do everything. We can't just be safety people. We have to plow roads, and we have to make sure the cemeteries are done. It's not that simple.
I know, John, but-
That's the problem, that's why these conversations are so difficult, is because everyone has 8 hats. I have 8 hats. I'm the road commissioner. It's ultimately my responsibility that these roads are taken care of.
I understand. I've lived here for 25 years. I don't remember
47.
driveways,
I hear you.
roads washing away and paving erupting and sewer systems going, hey, like,
October 31, 2021.
Okay. And?
Right?
Okay, keep
January 20,
Can I ask, to simplify this, maybe?
Sure.
Maybe this will simplify it. From what I'm hearing from a number of different people, and I feel in my heart too, it would be really, really helpful to have a very simplified listing of what this job would be doing.
Yep.
Where the funds that you think potentially we might save. Just bullet points,
Yes.
kind of a couple little charts, so we have a concise, document to look at.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be the full job description, because it sounds like we might want to revise that anyhow, from what I heard a few minutes ago, potentially. But just the concise, simple things in a document, so everybody has the same understanding
Sure.
of the conceptual need for this.
Yep.
Right now, it's the professional services, right? Do we have a sense, how confident are we that this year, if we didn't have this role, it would have been 65,000 instead of the 20 or so it was previously? Or, because I'm just trying to, I think it's $200,000. I think it sounds great, all else equal. I'm a little concerned to some of these points that it could be a chimera. You're looking for somebody to do everything for, not enough money, which I think is a real risk. But, if they could do everything, there's a lot of things really appealing about it. But it's $200,000 is a lot of money. 120 of it is sort of not wastewater, right? And then, if you say 65, say we are from here on out going to be spending $65,000 on professional services, engineering, it takes it down to, a $55,000 sort of annual increase, which is a lot more reasonable than a, $100,000 annual increase, right?
Right.
And then you would have projected areas of savings for efficiencies, list those too, so we don't forget those.
I think continues to be my big concern is that we keep adding people. And we're at 43 now. We add another one, but it sure would be nice to see exactly how we're gonna save money by adding one more employee to the town payroll. Yep.
And also the wastewater share, is that 40%, is that in perpetuity, or is that just like the initial bump and then it goes down to like 20 or, I don't know, something lower?
No, there's an expectation that we need wastewater engineering help. And we've got, if we're gonna have housing, if we're gonna have the
Sure.
wastewater system we have. We just don't have anybody in-house. It's crazy. I mean, we, from the select board, we're writing our own documents because we've got Orion doing a little bit, Megan doing a little bit, and John doing a little bit, and Mike doing a little bit, and there's no one central place in the town that understands our wastewater system.
So he'll be involved in wastewater, but not at 40% necessarily?
I mean, what we had agreed to was 50% with the wastewater budget.
Well, and I think what we're looking at with wastewater to solve the problem we currently have, which is a real problem. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not a projected problem. It's not even a wish. It's a real problem sitting in front of us that we've got to come to terms with.
Sure.
And so I have no problem saying that's going to be fixed going forward.
Sure, no, I'm just trying to figure out,
Probably
like,
couldn't
is
be
this,
more.
Fixed
is
percentage,
it
it's
going
not
to be,
gonna go
like,
down.
we only have to pay 60% of it this year, but in the future, we're gonna have to pay 90% of it, you know? That's my question, in the municipal budget.
Yeah,
The
but
wastewater issues aren't gonna disappear.
Right, no,
And-
that,
and-
but
That's
I was just
okay.
curious. It was meant, the project-based thing was mentioned, and I was curious.
And these
about-
projects aren't like a flash in the time.
No,
The
no.
thing
No,
that's
I-
going to go on in the harbor
believe me,
is
I'm
going
not
to be
trying to argue
multiple
about
years. The
how
wastewater
difficult
project is going to
wastewater
be
is.
multiple years.
That's, yeah, I don't need to be convinced on
The
that.
other part of this position, which, again, I still would like to see the one-pager as well, John, which I've asked for before, but you have to think of this, like, when we added a planning and development director, we didn't have any idea where the money was going to come from. But talk about a moneymaker, you know, return on investment. We got $5 million that came into the town thanks to one position being filled, thanks to Ryan, of course. But, you know, this is another case where having that kind of capacity, sitting shoulder to shoulder with Orion, Orion is the grant writer, but he needs
You can't,
the technical support
that's right.
to jump on these grants when they suddenly become available. You only have, sometimes a couple weeks, Orion, to dust off an application, get it in, get it in that queue. And the decisions are made really fast, and that field of opportunities of grants is getting narrower and more competitive. And if we're gonna have any piece of that pie, which we've been very successful to date on getting that. So we don't want to lose sight of that. If we're going to see growth in town, if we're going to attract new development, new businesses, it's not going to just happen on its own. We've got to invest somewhere. So to me, in many ways, this is a fairly reasonable investment.
Yeah, there's one last thing. There's a concept called value engineering out in the world, right? In other words, you get people to look at things as a team and try and figure out a way to do it the most efficiently, the most effectively, and get it done right. And we don't have the ability to value engineer our projects unless we hire a consultant to do it, because that's what they do. We don't do it ourselves. And those kinds of things, and I'm not gonna bother with war stories, but just in the last 2 or 3 years, we've gone through many different issues where we said, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? But when you have folks that are being asked to do things that they don't understand, it's not their fault, for goodness sake. They just need to have the ability to lean on somebody that can say, yeah, do it that way, and here's why. We don't have that. We have to hire it. And like I said before, those are the people that don't really live here and they don't really know what we need.
The percentage going over to wastewater, so is that going to increase wastewater customers?
Well, it's in the existing year budget.
So that's not gonna, but next year,
No.
is that gonna jump it up?
No, because if we were to stay with what's proposed here, it would be the same. There may be other issues with wastewater, but not because of this at all, no.
So we're not just pushing over 40% of them?
No, and the idea is to work with this engineer to
Find more savings.
find more savings and bring, Woodard and Kern now provides all our wastewater services. And that's, I think we're one of the only towns in the state that has a full-time consulting company doing it, who needs profit and overhead as they do those services for the town. So it is designed to bring those costs down as well.
Well, and I've seen some of the invoices. Every piece of equipment that we purchase that's recommended
gets its-
by Woodard and Curran has an admin fee tagged onto the top of it. And this isn't any small amount of money going out, so.
But I did see somewhere in here that if we did take over wastewater billing in-house, though, we would be adding additional employees. Would that be under this individual, or?
Well, right now, it's a wastewater, budget issue, but right now, part of our wastewater budget is a fee to Maine Water to manage our wastewater billing. Could there come a day where we have enough capacity in-house to handle that? Perhaps. I think we have too many issues right now that have to get resolved in terms of how Maine Water handles their billing, what we give them for information. There's an audit that has to occur and try to ensure that process happens to make sure what we're billing right now is accurate. But it is an issue in terms of that gap between a contractor and those who are actually doing the work. It's not a great situation in terms of how it works and a lack of transparency back and forth. Not in terms of not knowing what's going on, but we're not in their computer system. We don't know up to date where their billing is or what their usage is. It's a spreadsheet that it needs to be better. So I think we can do that apart from this, but you need someone who's overseeing wastewater every day, not someone who's working for a contractor who's working for the town to manage the system itself, but with a bigger sort of vision of mind of this is all connected. And that's what we're missing right now, in part.
And is there any, pullback or any reason not, this is added brand new department head to the town? And obviously, there's lots of concerns around our growth in employee level.
Yeah.
Is there any pushback on separating out from the budget and putting it up to the voters to decide if the voters want to hire their own town engineer? I mean, it's.
Giant mistake. We're having enough issue just explaining amongst people that are focused on the issue as opposed to putting it out to the town. I mean, I get your point, but.
I mean, it's a big change, and we tend to live with our changes, so.
I also think that this individual going forward needs to be held to task in terms of how we efficiently get work done around here. Okay, we need to do better at that, just collectively, all right? And that's just another piece of that puzzle. And last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is that we're looking at regionalization of wastewater. Camden, one of the Camden Select Board members told me, I want one wastewater district that starts in Camden and ends in Thomaston. Do you think if we try that, we're gonna outsource our engineering or get a couple of, volunteers to figure all that thing out?
Discussion for Rockport, yeah.
Yeah, no.
So, on that point, have there been discussions with the surrounding towns about sharing this position?
Not about sharing this position, no. They all have someone who's providing that expertise in-house.
John, all of these towns have somebody that handles not just wastewater, but roads and harbor and all those things, one engineer that has the expertise to do all of those things?
Not in the same setting, no, Bill. They're all a little different. As I said, Rockland has some similarities to this, Camden has some similarities, Bath was another one, but I don't think anyone has exactly this model, no.
It sounds like you're asking for a whole lot of different, again,
Yes.
capabilities. And I just wonder if an engineer can even do all those types of
Well,
things.
yeah, and I think that the statement to me is they can be an engineer, but we don't need the stamp. We need someone who has that level of thinking and that manner of thinking, but not necessarily someone who is stamping everything left and right. They're providing the skills they've learned in their training to support the larger goals that we've talked about here, stream crossings, paving, wastewater, incredible projects in the harbor. That's really the expertise we're looking for. And, I think once you explain that to people, people want to work here. People want to live and work in Rockport, Maine. And, someone who's accomplished a great deal somewhere else and maybe isn't quite wanting to play pickleball in the mornings like Bill over here. But those who have a lot of training experience, I think they want to be part of a community like ours. So I think we're attractive in that manner. I think that we have a lot of unique circumstances. And when you have communities around you who say, we want one sewer district from Thomaston to Camden, that's a pretty intriguing project to be a part of. It'd be a heavy lift, but I can tell you right now, there's nobody in this room right now that has the capacity to pull that off and have the ability to represent Rockport's issues the way they need to be, from my
So
perspective.
if this person checks all those other boxes but is not an engineer, there is a universe in which we hire this person and still have engineering costs that we have to hire somebody else for, correct?
That's not my intent, no. But I think
It almost
you're gonna have
sounded
engineering you will have engineering costs to some degree. We have engineering costs, part of the harbor strategic plan that with the group
Right,
they
but-
just put out.
Right, but we
It's
keep
not
throwing around
zero.
this, we keep throwing around this $65,000 number as, that's gonna, like, we're taking off $65,000 worth of engineering costs. So what are the engineering gonna, we're not gonna know until this person's hired what those, we can't book this savings, or we can't apply this $65,000.
Well, we're not increasing the budget by $65,000. That's really what the $65,000 costs. There was an amount set for budget in this year's budget of $65,000 to provide engineering costs. We don't need to raise $65,000. Now, to someone's point, well, we could just cut it and we don't have that part of the budget. You could, you absolutely could. But like every other part of this budget, maybe we'll talk about some of them, we could cut $65,000 worth of paving too. And what does that road cost 3 years from now when we have to come back and pave it? I know, there's a debate about that, but it's not gonna be less. It's not gonna be less.
Can I interject quickly? I think I lost the train of thought, because at
Okay.
one point, we kept saying the 65,000 that we spend for engineering now would be done. And I think a few minutes ago, it sounded like you said, if we hire this person, maybe he doesn't have the stamp or whatever, so maybe he.
Well, Steve was asking, what if he doesn't have the stamp?
Yeah,
Right.
because I think, because a few minutes earlier than that, I think I heard you say that, or it implied, that maybe we would hire somebody that wasn't able to be the full engineer. Did I misunderstand you?
Right now, a requirement of the job is that they're a licensed engineer.
Okay.
That's part of the job right now.
That's what I always thought.
There was a conversation that, Steven said, well, what if? And I sort of was, okay, well, what if? And I'm walking down that road with him a bit. Yes, that's not the sole 100% purpose here. As we discussed, there's a lot of
20%
reasons that we're going down this road.
Yeah.
But my point is that level of thinking, expertise, and training is absolutely something the town of Rockport needs in this position. And would be absolutely what we need to be hiring.
Yeah.
But we haven't hired anyone yet.
But if the person
so-
were not qualified as an engineer, then the salary would not be up so high that we would offset the 65,000.
Right, right. The
Okay.
intent
Well,
is.
They want
You
the-
can't play that game.
Yeah,
I agree.
Huh?
it's gotta be an engineer.
So,
I think it should be an
We'll be back to
engineer.
talk about something different.
Yeah,
if
I
we
think it
do
should
that.
be an engineer, but from what you were saying in response to him, I was just very confused.
Okay.
If you were thinking, well, maybe we don't know.
No, it's not what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay.
No,
I just want to be clear on that.
definitely not. No.
just related to that, I'll shut up too. On the one pager, Megan, when we looked at this historic line, going back to $4,000, and you had said those engineering costs have been covered by other revenue. Can we get the historic, like, what have we just spent for engineering costs for the last 5 years?
That might be a deeper dive than we
Okay.
could probably get to in a week or two, because you've gotta go back literally to every invoice that's been coded to
And
that
how they've
line.
been coded into the system?
But,
Okay.
yeah, the last year, I'll try to keep it short, we're tracking our invoices differently than we had been in-house. Mike and Brandy, who's Mike's assistant, is tracking to a far greater degree. If you want to know everything about FY '26, I got you, I could have it like
Right, I
this.
got you.
Going back to '22, not so much.
I think I could pull out the totals, what we billed
Right.
FEMA for. I think that was a bulk of our engineering expenses, and quite honestly, contracting with an engineer, they have a cap at which they can help us, because we're not their sole client. So when we were going through all that FEMA stuff, we were kind of getting pushed back on other stuff. Like, we don't have the capacity to help you with this, because we're already doing these FEMA projects. So I think I could, pull out what we billed FEMA for
Okay,
and
that's
just
great.
tell you what those amounts are.
That's
Do you have a
great, thank
breakout by vendor or something?
That's what I was,
That was the other thing. I was
Gartley and
wondering
Dorsey
if
was.
John, how long has this job been posted for now?
it was posted, let's see, I want to say a month ago.
Did you have any?
I've got four resumes. I wanted to get a few more before we sort of start calling people in, having phone interviews and the like, and feeling that out. And obviously, I want to have this conversation.
Any
frankly.
questions they've asked or surprising?
Yeah, I think, wanting to know really more about the community and the compute, what are our plans? What are we trying to accomplish? What are our, it's somewhat, some of the questions, some of you, what does this mean? Does this mean we're going to be building, skyscrapers and bridges? No, it means we're gonna be managing what we have, but we have some lifts here in the years to come about, already projects we've already talked about here.
And this job will not be approved until this budget is approved, correct?
I'm not gonna hire everybody until we get through this, yeah.
So, John, on the hiring process, given the importance of this position, are we going to have a committee of people representing various interests that are going to interview some of
I've
these
already
candidates?
talked to some of them, yeah.
Oh, you've already talked to some of the
Who
candidates?
potentially who could be part of a committee.
Okay, so you're already forming, because I know you take, for instance, when we hired Megan, which was an exceptional hire, we had, she had to go before like 6 people at one
Yeah.
time or something like that.
She still got the job.
And she still got-
Unbelievable, huh?
Yeah. So
No.
I think something at this level,
Yeah.
we really need to really be have
Totally agree.
all the best minds in the room looking at
Totally
it.
agree.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
all right,
I 100% agree with that,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you. I still have some other questions if.
I've got one more specific question on this. Does this affect any of the other employees' wastewater shares? Like, are you, and if it's gonna take less of your, no, okay.
No, when we cut it back,
Right.
so all of the other adjustments we made last year, we cut them all back significantly. Those, I think, 100%, I think they all remain exactly where they were, those percentages as of a year ago. So, for those of you who remember that conversation, that's.
You're talking about your cut and Megan and everybody?
Yeah, there were a number of positions that were funded, even the select board, there was, and we made adjustments percentage-wise a year ago. Those aren't proposed to change in this document. Okay.
All right.
Public Works, what else is in Public Works?
I had a question
Yeah.
about line item 3,000. So last year was call it 249. This year it's proposed at 126. Page
Yep.
160. What's the big difference there?
The 128.
Looks like it's going back to where it was before.
Yeah, so
Last year, a
on,
bump in something in particular, or?
so looking on 161, just if I go to the next one, just the breakdown of that, right? So, are we talking about, so we're going from 248 to 126 with 115? Is that what, am I on the same page as you?
Yeah, 240.
Literally?
So the
249.
breakout,
65,000.
Yeah.
Well, it's that, and a lot of
Shoulder
it is,
contracts.
contracted shoulder and reclaim work. We had a large reclaim project that we had to do this year, that is not in this budget, so that's a reduction of 40-some-odd thousand.
We also reduced vehicle repairs and maintenance by 10,000 to 25 to 15,000. The idea is to establish a reserve, hoping, knock on wood, that we remain in decent shape with our vehicles, to establish a reserve, so that way we can, when major calamity strikes the vehicles, we have a reserve available to fix that, rather than having to always plan as if.
So that
calamity
reserve is
strikes.
for repairs, or that's for purchasing of equipment? Or both?
Repairs and
Two.
maintenance,
Repair.
yeah.
So rather than trying to guess what that number could be, drop the number, but have a reserve in case it goes over the number
Yep.
that
So
we.
you're talking about 75-45 vehicle equipment reserve.
No, it's, oh boy, I got a paper cut, or a paper hole right here, but it's below 3105.
32.
Right, is what you're drawing.
Dropping.
Yep,
But you were just talking about the reserve.
right, we would establish a reserve that would.
Where is
That's
the
the
reserve?
reserve you're talking about is 75.
There hasn't been one
45?
established yet. It would be a new one.
I guess my hope would be at the end of the year, if we only put so many thousand into vehicle repair and there's still a bunch left, we may be able to encumber that money and put it in a reserve for
Without raising
vehicle
it
repair.
to do it.
Gotcha, so you'll have the vehicle equipment reserve is for purchasing of new equipment.
Yeah,
And trying to set that up so we're cash flowing that instead of buying or leasing that.
well, So the 6711 is tied in with the 2828, the 289, 289. This would be a new line that effectively would be zero for this budget. We're not funding it in this budget, but we're gonna fund it from
Whatever got,
exactly,
didn't get
what's
spent.
unexpended. Right. Yeah. Again, we're trying to do it without asking more to establish it.
And what do we have for new purchases for capital improvements on this budget?
So we have a backhoe and loader, and we have, we're gonna, the
Doosan
excavator.
excavator, trading it out.
Yep.
It's I think the backhoe, in the capital it was like an F-550 or something, and this was in a different year, I think. Did something move forward, or?
We moved it out of last year's as
Oh.
well.
Oh,
We
right.
We kicked it down the road.
And yeah, there was supposed to be a 550 in this, and that was in the capital plan, and then
Right.
the conversation at that evening was, really, we should push those out an additional year, so.
Right.
Subsequently, that's why this looks different than what you saw in
The
the fall.
550s got moved to a 6-year plan.
Right.
Versus a
Right,
5-year.
right, okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Joanne, you had a question, I think.
Well, yeah, it's in the equipment, and it's more about how we're planning for replacing our equipment. I mean, it looks great on a spreadsheet and, writing it off over a number of years, but how does this connect to what the equipment actually looks like, Mike? Are you reviewing this list to make sure we really need to do it at that
Yes.
point in time?
Yes.
And is there anything on this list that you think you might be able to push back and?
Well, each year is gonna be a look at them, evaluate them that particular year as we're coming up on whether it should be traded or not. And the hope would be if they last longer than 6 years, it can get pushed out. That moves up to John and Megan another issue of in the, payment schedule. But I guess for me, then it's, we decide from there. If something doesn't need to be traded, I'm not, hot to get rid of it because we gotta have a new truck or a new whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we
Well, we're gonna have
evaluate that?
we have an estimate of, like, the 550's a 6-year. They see a fair amount of abuse in that 6 years. As we roll those over into a second row truck, in 6 years, but if that 550 in 6 years still looks good, we're gonna get another year out of it, I hope. Not just trade it because it's on a plan, is, from my standpoint, if that's what you're asking.
Well, yeah, I'm just making sure that there's communication between what you're working with. You're the guy
Right.
driving these things and
Right.
handling them.
I know, in the payment plan, that causes sometimes some heartburn, because now you've got instead of we're gonna trade no vehicles this year, now we got 5 next year is how it possibly could fall.
The thing that we've done different this year than we have in the past is selected an amount that we think, based on projections and equipment prices, is that an appropriate annual funding for equipment for public works is $350,000 a year. So if our lease payments are short that, we'll put that money into the reserve, and then we can, instead of leasing equipment, get to the point where we can buy it and save the money and interest that we're currently paying. If we are in a year where our lease payments or purchases are over $350,000, then we would use money from the reserve to level that. One of the biggest cost drivers and fluctuation in this department is capital expenditures. So if we can find a way to stabilize those, then it will help with the ups and downs in this department.
So the short of it is, if I'm understanding it right, if Mike says, hey, I think I can get another couple of years out of this, we don't need to replace it, it's gonna result in savings based on the schedule you've set up. So you don't have to reconfigure
No.
your schedule at all.
Well, we
You're just
would
putting it
redo
to the
it
reserve.
so that it matches what we expect our lease payments to be, but the goal would be to keep that funding at 350,000, period, between the reserve and purchases for that year.
Yeah. So we're really banking the savings at some point if we end up holding on to a vehicle.
Well, I mean, like, the first year that you really see this is fiscal year 28, 29. There's a trailer, there's 2 trailers that need to be replaced. At that time, we would, and historically, items like that have been lease purchased. We would pay cash for those instead. At that time, we would potentially also have enough money to buy the wood chipper that's estimated at $50,000. Instead of lease purchasing that, we would just pay for it outright. The following year, a vacuum truck, we would pay for that outright instead of lease purchasing it. To save money on those interest payments that we're making for doing the lease purchase agreement.
But we're making a commitment to lease purchase that we're basically stuck with once we get into it, right?
It depends on the piece of equipment. They range anywhere from 4 years to 7, I think, is the highest. So we would for the term of that. I try, when I do lease agreements, I always try to make sure that they're less than the useful life of the piece of equipment, because I don't want to be paying a payment on something that we've already exhausted its useful life on. So we try to make sure that those match up accordingly to the useful life of the piece of equipment.
Okay.
So the bottom line is, Mike, keep running those trucks.
Right, and, you know, as long as things can stay inside, as long as the sun isn't breaking things down, as long as we're taking care of our maintenance and upkeep, I don't have an issue if they're not costing us money.
Do we track things like hours or miles and calculate things along those lines?
We do. In municipal, hours probably outweighs
Right.
miles.
Sure.
Miles.
Yeah, I can imagine
And
that.
probably municipal, on some of the diesel stuff, the way they're built, they're probably not driven as much as they should
Right.
be.
Right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Walker.
Well, I guess the 350 is sort of interesting. It raises several questions for me, one of which is inflation and in interest rates, which would probably severely affect how much you're spending each year, right? 10 years hence probably is a little different than 350. But I also worry there's something called Parkinson's Law, that budgets tend to expand to fill whatever the number says on the headline is. Oh, we've got an extra 50K this year. What can we buy? Now, that's just human nature. So I guess it's just hard for me, and I'm not a car guy or motor guy or anything. I'm a numbers guy, but we're looking to figure out, is this the right replacement schedule? And it's this way better than me, but without having some sort of we replace a excavator after 10,000 hours or whatever it is. It's hard to get a sense. And winters are so different. You see in these stats that we have a lot of snow events some years. So to say 6 years or whatever, it seems like, doesn't that depend on the 6 years a little bit? So I guess I'd love to see some more stats if they're available and they can be put in here about just like how
Each truck, each piece of equipment will be a little different. I mean, some things probably may go by more by a year and
Right.
possibly may rust out before the engine's
Sure,
giving out.
sure.
And other things, it's according to what the truck value is. Now you gotta look at putting an $8,000 exhaust on a
Right.
$15,000
Right.
truck. Do we
Right.
wanna do that?
Yeah. No, probably not. Even I could say that.
But to answer your question, back to what, if it's not broke, I'm not trying to fix it or
Right,
trade it.
yeah,
I'm
sure.
not gonna trade it because we
Yeah.
need something shiny.
Right.
If it's still working
Yeah.
and still, let's get the life out of it. The truck, we've got a spare that's a 2004.
Yeah, I saw.
And the frame is cracked, the body is rusting, we're done with it.
I like the look of that grader that I see out sometimes.
That's a
That-
60.
yeah,
And
that looks
that's
like deep
and that's-
value.
That's a
Yeah.
whole nother, another story in the, John and I will talk, as that grader comes up, do we need another grader? Are we gonna go spend whatever, $250,000 for a new grader? Probably not for 2 miles of dirt road.
Sure.
And do we buy a used one that may have just as many problems as our 68. So or do we just sub that out and have it deal with it in that particular case?
Or other communities that have a grader.
There are some, Union used to, and we, would talk back and forth some if we had an issue. So there are potentials of other towns working together with them.
Have you ever had a conversation with Camden on sharing equipment? Or
We
is
have.
is that
We
just
have.
unrealistic, because both towns are using the equipment?
You really need a really good agreement on who's doing what, how many hours, who's used it, what. In the past, there was a piece of equipment, every time we seemed to get it to use it, we had to fix it to use it, so it was like, we're putting way more money in this. We're getting the short end of the deal
Yeah.
every time.
That was brilliant on their part.
So
You guys
flip
can have
that
it, it
one.
just needs a
I would say
$10,000
that
fine.
isn't impossible, but you'd really need some good
Is there-
language and like a mutual lease,
Yeah, rather than
service and maintenance.
hiring a subcontractor, do we have an option to rent any of this stuff from time to time?
There is
versus-
options to rent. I've never rented a grader. I mean, I've rented rollers, bulldozers. And there's some local guys that have been willing to rent their stuff if we need them, if we get in a jam that, JBI has a grader, we work great with them.
Yeah.
A couple companies around that have graders that we can talk to. And like
So-
I say, other towns that I think would be willing to work with us.
So we're somewhere around, I guess, 30 pieces of equipment, major pieces of equipment?
Right.
Do you have any way to assess whether that's a lot or about right for a town of our size with our,
We're gonna get rid of an 04. That one's run its course. We've settled on what we need for spare trucks. We've got a mechanic's truck that's run its course. It's the same as I had mentioned before. We could fix it. We could put $5,000 into a $6,000 truck, and then the transmission goes, and now you need another $4,000. Do you wanna do that? So that's going as well. So with those two pieces of equipment going, Buildings and Grounds has a piece, we're gonna put them in an auction, that's a municipal auction, so it gets bid on. But to have two big trucks, it's a spare, and we have two 550s that can be backups in the winter. But for the most part, one stays geared up. We actually have three 550s that are spares. One stays geared up for an incident, just like we had Saturday, that wheeler chain stopped working in the sander. He scooted back to the shop, grabbed the 550 all geared up, finished his route. With getting rid of the mechanic's truck, that's gonna leave us a vehicle short, so we do have the other 550 that has a dump body on it, and at this point, we're just gonna make that work and learn to use it with the way it's rigged, and if we have mechanical issues, do we put a toolbox in the other shop truck and whoever's using it loses it while we have an issue? Or do we just find a rolling toolbox that we put in the 1-ton? So we have figured out what we need for extra equipment. We have that equipment. And the mechanic will be a bit of a learning curve with getting rid of his truck and how the best way to handle that is.
I had a question on the spares, as you were touching on, which seemed like a lot to me. But it sounds like we have 6 spares, one we're getting rid of, one's going to the mechanic's truck.
Right, we're getting rid of the 04, we're getting rid of, the 350 that, I think that's an 04.
Oh, yeah.
That was the mechanic's
Right,
truck. So
yeah.
that leaves 2 big trucks, and sometimes we gear up a big truck just for that route, and,
Right.
we always have a 550 geared up for spare, but we've still got brush removal, snow removal, trash,
Yeah, sure.
a number of things,
Yeah.
which all those trucks are getting used,
Right.
all the time.
Okay,
To gear stuff up and
Right.
ungear it
right.
just isn't cost effective, nor is it something you wanna do to have a 10-foot body swinging over your head every other day with 2 guys trying to put it in the truck and chain it back in and
Right,
hook it up.
yeah. So they're not really, spare is kind of a little bit of a misnomer. They're actively used. They're not just sitting
Right.
around
They're not just
waiting
sitting
for.
there collecting
It's not
dust.
like we have our 8 frontline trucks break all the time. Right. That's good. Because that, I was trying to figure out the math of the replacement schedules and whatnot, which is a little confusing because I think we have 10-year lifespans on the 550s, but we replace them every 6 years so that we have
They
this
come
spare
off-
rollover.
The plan is at the moment to come off in 6 years, and like I say,
Yeah.
if that's truck, to me, still
Yeah.
looks usable, and we're gonna make it a 7th year. The money that would be paid can be put in an account, but we'll
Right.
get another year.
So in regards to that, the excavator and the loader that we're purchasing, you probably don't know the hours, I couldn't imagine, but, year, do you know the year of those? And are the ones that we're looking at this as approved, are those going to the auction with the trucks, the old ones?
We can, and we can look at trading them. We can see what they're talking.
But I'd be curious to see what years
Yep,
that loader
that-
and excavator is, that we're replacing. It seems like, they're not add-ons, right?
No, they're replacing.
So like the new case that you're looking to get is gonna replace a 2011 backup?
Yes, yes.
It looks like a 2014 Doosan, is that the?
The Doosan, the case has around 5,000, I think it's 4,900 hours on that. The Doosan, they put a new computer screen last spring, I think, and it's showing around 500 is what it's showing.
500 hours?
Yeah,
And that year, that was,
I was just looking for mine.
that was the Walker's?
2014, I think.
So that's a 14 excavator?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
In the capital improvement plan on page 335, then the 336 is the list, an actual list of all of public works equipment. I think that's the only place that has the actual
Yeah.
list.
Yep.
The replacement schedule doesn't necessarily have all of this stuff on there.
No.
Because some of the stuff isn't part of, like the hay shooter is not part of the replacement list.
Right, if we can get 25 years out of that thing, we'll get as many, I mean, it's kept inside, it's serviced, it's maintained, so that's something that, you know, if it starts acting up and starts causing problems, we'll look at getting rid of it, updating it. The Doosan, it's got a good motor in it, but it's had a bunch of electrical problems. And the buckets, they get quite a lot of, I've tried to replace some of the pieces to tighten it up, and you can't get the pieces to service that. I had to have a piece made to get it through, you know, this year.
Probably more from Megan, sorry. These 4% interest rates, is that what we still see for
It's
lease
hard
purchase?
to say.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't done a lease agreement this year yet. The last one I did in the last fiscal year was 5.75. Interest rates have come down slightly since then, so I'm hoping that they'll continue to trend down, but it's really hard to say.
And do you get to choose these terms, or like
Yes.
so like with the 550s, it looks like, I mean, just on the schedule, which I know isn't set in stone, and it's future years, but could those go out to a 6-year term if we're?
They could. So if I am bound to like a budgeted amount, then I will tell them what my max payment is, and then they will work the schedule around that. Sometimes I won't even provide them that information, be like, what's the best you can do for me for the term that I want? And if the payment comes back higher than what we budgeted, then I'll be like, okay, well, I need you to rework this to fit this amount.
I've got a question to pivot from this discussion, so I don't know if people have other questions. I don't want to completely take us on another direction, but just quickly, I'm thinking about something that Bill said earlier, actually, about sort of performance indicators. I'm looking at page 159, which is the performance measures. And we've talked last year, and we talked a little bit this year about probably needing to spend some time kind of rethinking these. You've got a department goal in here. We've got a performance measure of portion of the real estate tax bill that goes to the department. I don't even know what that's supposed to tell us, but we can come back to that one. But the other one, the one down below, says maintain stable tax rate while providing the highest quality of services possible within resources available. And you have performance measures there, but those are mostly, those aren't quality-related metrics, right? It's the, amount of things you buy, salt purchases and feet of culverts. I don't know enough about the industry to know how the kind of quality and performance measures are done. How do you think about, because we talked earlier about maybe we've had some contractor work that we weren't satisfied with, which is why we need to do this other thing. How are you measuring internally, and what could we put in here at some point that's more around performance measures, quality of the work, efficiency of the work? It's not just how many culverts did we put in and
Right.
whatever. It's like, this was really better than it was before, because we're hearing a lot about, we have to do a lot because what we're doing isn't good enough, and we have to invest more to make it better. How do you measure that?
As far as, replacing and updating, I think we're using better products.
Okay.
We're taking, some of the culverts that have settled, raised. When that stuff gets done, we're putting a better material
Okay.
around them. We're making sure the compactions, so the work is getting done correct, not
With better materials?
with better material, better overall
Okay.
job of doing them.
And on the labor side, looking at sort of, this is gonna take the guys this amount of time, I mean, how are you tracking efficiency of the team, productivity of the team? I'm thinking ahead to, we're gonna have to do, I think, at some point.
No, I would guess, we're gonna have to look at more setting goals for as far as, we just got to a point where we have 2 crews.
Yeah,
We got mostly 2 crews of 4. I don't think we're at the point yet of, well, you've got, that culvert's a 3-hour job.
right. Here's your target, and are you
Right,
meeting the target or
right.
not? Okay, I
I
got
think
you.
we're working to get there.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, that's fair.
But having the tools we need to get there, we're certainly on the right track and
Okay.
in a position where we can start doing that.
Right, so if we came back at some point after this process and said, like, we gotta rethink how we're measuring performance of
Yeah, no,
your-
totally.
Okay, and we can think about how to do that.
When we look at a road, we can say, there's 6 culverts out, you guys got X amount of hours.
Okay.
Does the weather always cooperate with that? No, that's gonna
Well, sure,
drive
yeah,
some
yeah.
things off.
Yeah.
2 people sick that day, that drives a few things off.
Right.
But we can have a better outside goal of,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
a potential performance measure for the department is actual performance against sort of projected or planned or scheduled performance, setting aside rain and broken equipment and
yes,
all those other
yes,
things.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, if we're saying, if I make a projection of this road should take 60 hours and it's taking 180, there's a problem.
That's exactly what I wanna try and put in here.
Yes.
How do we quantify that in some way that?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I don't know when these metrics were put in, but I think they need another look.
Yep.
I think some of that too, what's gonna end up happening, because when we first raised the paving budget, like I think it was about 5 years ago, right, when we first raised it drastically, which is what was like the first huge tax increase. That, I mean, we're halfway through a 10-year paving plan now, so some of the metrics that should start showing up are,
Longevity.
since we just increased between the 72,000 and additional materials that, well, I guess only 40 of that was an increase over last year. But then we have another 30,000 up between culverts and drainage and gravel and what was the other one? Road construction material. That, that slip or that creep is gonna keep adding up, but if we have a metric that's showing our roads are going from lasting 10 years to
Right,
lasting
right.
13 years,
Right.
we're gonna save money, but
Right.
if we don't have a way to see that, what I'm looking at right now is we're still increasing a budget by 10%, but we don't know if we're actually doing a better job on the roads. I mean, I know we feel like we're doing a better
Right.
job, but
So, yes, and we should be getting at a point as far as, hopefully this work is paying off. We're not gonna have 62 culverts, in 2 years from now. We're gonna have just what
yeah, I mean, I
unforeseen.
think that, which I know probably don't have free time, but the point of it is if we can take some time and come up with however many culverts we've done over the
Yep.
last so many 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, if that's 40% our culverts, that's gonna be a diminishing cost that you can actually put on paper and we can see that will
Right, right,
pay for an engineering position.
right. You know, there is,
Or go back to taxpayers, so they can keep that money themselves
No,
and
no,
spend it.
no.
Oh, I forgot, sorry, I'm in Rockport.
There-
Like,
there
it only
is-
goes one way.
there is a point where, you know, roads, you can only do so much with what you have to work with. These bases were made
Yeah,
under our roads, whatever that number was, 120 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 60 years ago. And we try to get, you know, I hear all the time, well, why do you have your ditches so deep? Well, we're trying to get every bit of the water out of that road base and run down the side of the road, so when this freezes, it doesn't raise up 6 inches. And, you know, some of that material, when I get into a road that has, like we talked about earlier, severe alligator cracking, there's sections I've rebuilt 400 feet of, but you can't do that to the whole road, so you still, you can come 80% of the way, but you can't rebuild all our bases, you know, in the road, so there's still, like you said, we can get them from 10 to 12, but there's a point where we're in Maine with cold frost, lack of better words, not the best road base. You can only make them as good as you can make them.
So Mike, when you're talking about these roads now that are better than they were before, did we have to hire an engineer to design that, or did you do that?
Anything that gets, what can we do to make this better? We've had a pretty good working relationship with the engineers. You know, I run by what I think, they run by what they think. They look at what I've said, I look at what they've said, we come up with a.
And does this happen,
That's with
where this should
third-party
go.
engineers.
does this happen every year?
Anything
Every
that,
project.
you know, there's a question on this project, yes,
And that
done by the
$65,000 we're talking about, that's not the engineering projects we're talking about?
That's, as John, I think, indicated earlier, in the paving budget was built in the engineering costs
Okay.
that were part of that project.
Is there a place in here to look at outside contractors' costs that doesn't include, like, we know paving's huge.
Huge.
But when we're looking at multiple culverts, I take it, I mean, we have staff, a large staff, but is there other contractors participating in our town? And where would that number be tied to? I think I kind of went down this road with you, John, before.
Yeah.
And that's where I was kind of going with, like,
I
what
got
are we
you. So-
paying other
Yeah.
contractors to do what our public works could do if they either had the time allotted or
So I guess
efficiencies?
I'll answer the first part, and then I'll see if Megan can answer the second part on where that number is. So as we're looking at the project through the summer, what that list we had last year, I don't remember how many roads, it was a lot of roads. I pushed just until, you know, watching the clock, watching the weather, going, I think we can get 99% of this road done. There's one road with this project left and this project still to do, we're not gonna get done. So I hired a contractor for, I think, 5 days, he come in and did, we supplied the culverts, we supplied the material if there was a driveway that needed, you know, a good base. He did his part. I think we might have gone up and seeded it, we had time to do that, but he did what we didn't have time to do.
So ideally, we're trying not to bring in outside contractors to do
If,
our
if
public.
we can help and we have the equipment, I wanna do everything we can in-house. That's why we've got the crew, so.
If you look at the paving schedule, and I realize that it's small, so it's hard to look at, but if you look at the header titles, there's 4 numbers in parentheses. That correlates to where it is in the actual budget document. So any number that starts with a 3 is a contractual service. So in this budget, there's some shoulder work or things of that sort, reclaim, that would be contracted out. It's here. Tree work, that's allocated here for what we anticipate being contracted out. There is no contracted engineering in here, assuming that we would have somebody on staff to handle that. And then the manhole risers, there isn't a number there because it's really a wastewater issue, but we put that here to get a true cost of what our paving expenses are, because obviously if we're laying down more pavement, we gotta raise the manholes so there aren't giant holes. So that money shows up in the wastewater budget, but I put it here because I think it's important to know how much it costs to really pave that road. So it's just those items that are contracted out versus like our own employees doing it.
And another thing to answer the question that you asked, we were hiring shouldering done, which come out to like $2-something a foot. And with one of our trucks, I hate to call one of my guys a redneck, but he said, I think I can redneck engineer so we can shoulder this ourselves with the equipment we have. And what he did really worked well, and it come out, I think we're doing it just as fast. The contractor was doing a great job, looked really good, but the guys are doing a really good job with what he come up with to work on it, come out good.
Have you considered redneck bonuses?
Right? And we were doing it, and we were
There's
doing
our
it
engineer
like-
right there, John.
I don't remember that number, what that was, but it went from like $2.20 a foot to 98 cents a foot or something, so it was a pretty good, when you're talking thousands of feet.
Just to go back on some of those things I was talking about before, I guess I kind of got sidetracked to do that, but all of that stuff added up, I wanted to bring that up because I think this is the first year that our paving, total paving and gravel and all the other miscellaneous stuff for road work is the first year it's passed our excise tax revenue, projected revenue, which is the whole point of our excise tax, is to pay from our roads. So if now we're looking at our curves and flattening our curves, we're paying more to repair our roads than we're bringing in, which is gonna run out at some point.
What page you on, Todd?
I'm on 162, 161 and 162 mostly for the, highways, different expenses pertinent to roads, and then when we were going over in the town clerk for the revenue on excise tax, it was 1.2 on page 54.
And we're at 127, what was the?
It is $1,207,933.
So we're 7,000 over.
Yeah, so, it's, I mean, we're over it this year, but we were, you know, a couple $100,000 shy of that last year, weren't we? We were close, we were a lot farther away than 7,000.
Yeah. Put it on a couple $100,000. Right?
You know, I think what we budgeted last year.
Weren't we at 1.3? Now 1.327, now we're 1.381? Is that what you're, is that?
No,
is that
it's
something
a
you're
more
looking at?
complicated number, I think.
Or are you
Because
looking at
it's
the,
just basically
It's just
7605.
are you looking at this number?
Yeah,
I
right.
see,
Yeah.
yep.
Basing
It's
it.
the 1.2, I got you.
Mike, in the summertime for 4 months, when we have increased traffic and people from away coming up, who don't obviously pay excise taxes on their vehicles to the town, what percentage of them damn foreigners, what percentage of non-residents do you think would be chewing up our road?
Oh, God.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I don't even know how I would put a number on that. I mean, it quadruples.
But I mean, it's reasonable to have that allocation go to the roads, but I'm not sure it's reasonable to expect it to do everything, considering the amount of pounding the road's getting from cars that don't contribute towards it.
Last year for paving expenses, we were $1,130,794.
So 70,000 below the 1.2. We don't yet have our final excise tax number.
No.
John, I know this is not my meeting to run, but are you gonna serve breakfast?
We are getting,
Pancakes, waffles, what are you feeling?
And I guess, Claire, with what's being said, this budget is presented, the paving part especially, on what's a need. You know, and then I have things like I hear a lot, why'd they do this, why'd they do that? I have like, you know, some sidewalk projects in there that we've talked about, that's up to the, I put some things in here because I hear them every day, I hear them constant. Do they need to be done? Yep, that's up to the budget committee and the select board to decide whether we do them. So I guess there's some things that I would say, if you wanna look at, that's why they're in this book, that's why, because I hear them constant, they are safety issues, should they be looked at? They should. Should they be done? They should, that's why they're here. But at the same time, you know, we're in, for you guys to look at them and say, that's not important to us, or it is important to us. So I guess one of the things to look at would be like 5345, that's the sidewalks. If you're looking at, your budget is over where we wanna be, that is something we hear a lot of people on the corner on the sidewalk. The crosswalk that we're talking about possibly raising some, and, you know, is a pretty good safety feature, a safety factor as far as being, it's right in the middle of the town.
Something has to be done about the crosswalk.
Something's got to
I
be
don't know
done,
what the
how we
answer
do
is.
it, but, you know, I just want, I put them in here because a lot of stuff I hear, you know, is that a problem from me looking at it? Definitely. Do we need to look at moving the parking spaces back? Definitely. We're gonna lose, but I guess from what we're saying, those are, I guess, things to look at over cutting paving that we're gonna go backwards on if we don't do.
And we have, as you mentioned, the longer we wait to pave a road, the more expensive it becomes, especially if you lose the road. I mean, I think that's what we sort of have seen happen. There were some pretty easy budgets back in the day, but they didn't have enough in there for paving.
Right.
And then there was a bond.
Or the
catch
work
up.
to do the paving, so they were just getting paved, they were just getting surfaced
Right.
and nothing else was happening.
Right. And then
So,
then you
and
lost
that-
all the
and that
paving.
isn't conducive to stretching the longevity of that piece of road.
Well, per Bill's question, it is getting late, but this is this is the single biggest budget item in our budget, is the Public Works budget. So it has, I think, been a good, full discussion, but I don't want to cut anybody off if they still have questions about this budget. I mean, obviously, we're hearing that the engineer position is, we're going to provide some more information on that. Are there other items in this budget that folks here want to set aside and say, I'm not ready to be okay with that? I want more information, I'm just concerned. Okay. All right, well, shall we move on?
Parks?
Some of these should hopefully move along.
Page
Right.
27.
I've cut, if I cut this budget anymore, we're not even gonna have a Parks Committee. The Parks Committee actually went through this and did a really good job. You know, they support what this budget is. And it's pretty pick clean. That one of the biggest thing I think is the park was being treated, that was totally cut. So outside of that, there isn't.
Yeah, it's really mowing, is what you're left with.
They're,
What was cut, Mike? What did you just say?
the turf doctor was treating the park.
Oh, okay.
And we're not gonna, with, the hope is now, you know, it's in good shape, it's at a point where it's mature, it's got irrigation, so hopefully it will, you know, looking after it, just naturally, it's gonna hopefully stay where it should be and where it is,
I'm sure that was a purely budgetary decision by the Parks Committee. Yeah.
so. Other than that, there's not a lot left there.
Is Marge Jones included in this?
No.
That's recreation.
Where's, oh, it's
That's under
recreation,
Yep.
okay.
Dumb question, lime kiln maintenance, who takes care of that? Or is there any?
Historically, it's been in the harbor budget, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay.
There has not been any funding allocated to it for several years.
Legacy Rockport did some work
Yeah.
within the last couple years on that. They tend to keep an eye on that.
The,
So I was wondering.
the design for the marine park area will include some version of lime kiln maintenance, as far as what we can save, what we can try and preserve. So, that, but, you know, that's 2, 3, 4 years out.
Yeah.
But
Okay, anything, any questions, anything else on parks? All right,
Harbor, 139. And we may have Abby with us, who is coming to us from home. She's out, but hopefully able to join us remotely here, and we can hopefully, there she is, with her cool sunglasses, looking good.
Yeah, it looks
Looking good,
super
Abby.
cool in like the dim room. It's the most screen time I've had in 6 weeks. I feel like a little kid, but it's not that fun. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Abby.
So, yeah, 139, this is a budget that is down 8.1% net. And I just to give, let's give Abby, Abby's out and out. She had an unfortunate injury at the Snow Bowl, and she's doing great and getting better every day.
Yep.
But she's not working right now, and so she's coming to us and got an approval from her doc to be able to do the screen time thing tonight. So very appreciative of Abby going above and beyond. So a lot of the budget here, she put this together before everything was great. I made some very minor tweaks, but this is largely what was presented, what she presented to me, and, you know, made some changes, but very minor changes. So, we haven't given this the same one, working over, we do have other budgets, because, you know, Abby just really hasn't been available to meet, so. Anyway, glad to answer any questions and do our best with it.
Tell me where the costs for the Donut Festival are on this?
There is no budget in here for the Donut Festival. Ryan, do you want to maybe come up and talk about Donut Festival just very briefly as how that's structured?
So, the Donut Festival is fully funded by sponsors and vendor fees. So that's kind of the summation of it right now.
So all the costs for the Public Works people to work on that, so forth, are all covered?
So there are support for mowing, extra mowings of the lawn, or, you know, setting up, stakes for, you know, snow fencing. That's part of Public Works, you know, run of the mill. We try to make sure it's not something that's outward and takes them off of projects. It just takes planning and organization. It hasn't been a problem to pull back our efforts on other projects. So, and we also, Abby's staff is there for the weekends anyway. That's sort of how they work. So, it's not an additional lift really from what they already are doing. Although it's a little bit earlier than typically, because it's a little cooler.
I noticed the health insurance, for whatever reason, is one department where it has gone up instead of down on 2540.
That's because there's just one employee affected, and the coverage didn't change.
Okay.
Abby, just for a quick check, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, thanks.
Something with
Yeah.
teams.
And maybe Abby can talk to the seasonal full-time employees. We've gone from 2 over the last 10 years, from 1 to 4 people. These are the assistant harbor masters? Who are these?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of discrepancy in the, just the titling. I think at times we've tried to do, we've always had myself, and then typically 3 other employees throughout the season. Sometimes that was 2 deputy harbor masters, depending on the personnel we got, and what we were, trying to accomplish. Like this season, we're looking at 1 deputy and 2 park attendants. So just titling thing a little bit more than a staffing. I think we've added 1 more person to be more of a dedicated office person too in there, just because it would drag, keep all of our time office based rather than out on the water.
Abby, on the again, historical staffing levels, it shows 4 people, four people seasonal full-time this year, plus yourself. You were mentioning there was gonna be 3?
Yeah, see, this is where maybe my, it's a bit of a tell for my injury too. So I can, I might have a little bit of my numbers off a little bit. But it's gonna be broken down. I'm definitely gonna have, the one deputy harbor master, and then depending on how many hours, there would be either 2 or 3 park attendants, or maybe some doing some deputy harbor master jobs. And then, broken up, but the money, I don't know if that makes sense, but the money wouldn't change depending on, and the hours really wouldn't change. Maybe someone would take 20 hours and another person would take 20 hours.
There would be the equivalent of 4 part-time seasonal employees down there.
For part-time, not full-time.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, there might be,
full-time,
yeah. it might-
part-time, depending on who selects what hours.
Right.
So the Harbor Department wages on 2010 shows going from 134,000 to 152,000 next year, 150,000 next year. Is that because we've added more people, or what's the?
Extended the hours in which they're working.
Yeah, the shoulder, like into the shoulder seasons to help with, a busier springtime, and then into the fall to help with taking things out.
Because the harbor's busier now on these shoulder seasons?
Oh, yeah, yes, yep, it's busy all the time now.
So they're helping to bring in more revenue.
Right, more,
Well, but they're not.
Trying to-
Yeah, that's my question.
The revenue's
Yeah.
dropping.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with, the sort of the will of what we're after as far as transient boaters and overnight dockets. That's really where we make our revenue, right? That's really like where we can make the difference. And we're just seeing a drop in transient boaters. It's sort of like, there was a season, I think it was 2021, that just, there was every cruising boat, up and down, because they couldn't go to the Mediterranean. So we had 100-foot boats on the dock, every night, totally, just standing room only. And we haven't seen that in a couple of years. We've had some business outfits that use the dock more in some years and then get discouraged to use the docks in other years because, we're trying to make room for resident boaters, and just sort of the will of, I work with the Harbor Committee to say, do we want to make sure we're allowing access for our residents and our, commercial users, or do we want to cater to those transient vessels to bring in more revenue? I try to just strike a balance with all that. And I've been kind of looking at attracting, using some online reservation, books that would definitely attract a different clientele of boats, for better, for worse. So it's kind of 6 in 1, and it's kind of a crapshoot. But we are always trying to get those revenues up, and
is that like DACWA?
it's a way to do it. Yeah, like DACWA. That's exactly right. Yeah, and so that
great.
comes with its own drawbacks and, what we want Rockport Harbor to look like. Do we want,
So Abby,
all the fancy boats, or?
I know
are
I
you okay
love,
with,
I love counting the dollars when I see those great big boats in there, but I do know that other residents are really upset by seeing them. I think
There's a trade-off for sure, and it's really just what the values of what we want. I try to just strike the balance, and sometimes that means a little less on the revenue side, just because we don't we're not attracting them; they're coming to find us. But it also means more room on the dock for residents, which people really, not just residents, but transient or other boaters, that people really like, and that's why they come to Rockport.
So is that, when you have your statement, there are ways to attract more transient boat traffic that we have not wanted to do in the past, but maybe time to look into?
That's
exactly right, okay.
Yep.
So the bottom line on the wages is the budget this year is 134,000, and we're gonna go to 150,000 next year. And that includes all of those employees that we just talked about, the 3 or 4 assistants,
Yes.
everything.
And Abby.
Yes.
And Abby.
Yep. And an increase, whatever it is, the small percentage increase of salaries.
Abby, are you gonna, the utility card, I'm not quite clear. I know you wanted it last year, and now you've put it in for this year, but it got taken out. How did that get reallotted? Are you going to get the utility card?
Well,
Yes, that's if we can, what happened last year was it got budgeted and then at one number that I was sort of quoted, and then they got the shipment in and they were, $4,000 more than what I got the quote for, so could not buy it. And this year I've been assured, quote unquote, that we can get it for the amount if we encumber, what I initially budgeted in this current budget, and then what I'm proposing to budget in this next one.
But it looks like it's been removed.
right. So the idea is to spend with the existing.
So that was,
Yeah,
I
that's
have a
one,
better
that's
answer.
one of the few changes.
Thanks, John. Put that
Yeah.
back in.
No, sorry. No, I think we can find the money in
We
the
need
existing
it.
year budget.
Yeah, we could probably find the money because I'm not there.
Right.
It could be the Abby, we could call it the, Abby
Abby
injury
card.
card.
Okay, so she is going to get this very much needed.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll need it.
Sorry.
Abby, what's the Camden reimbursement? What is it? What is
That
it?
was when Camden was paying for me to be the ski patrol director, which we didn't settle on, and we were doing it sort of differently, and I was doing it on my PTO time. So in the wintertime, I take my accumulated PTO and am the ski patrol director over there. But for a while, Camden was reimbursing me, but then I had 2 jobs for the price of 1, so it didn't really work out for me very well.
Okay. I have one other question on the narrative up on top, Abby, your mission. I'm just curious, because it says to preserve, protect, promote, and progress. And then.
Yeah, I know that's not like really, that's not, that wouldn't pass AI these days. But the progress was, like to progress the harbor, to make sure we're looking at new environmental standards, to, it was a sort of a non-traditional use of the word, but I think you probably catch my drift.
Okay, and then I just noticed you used the word working waterfront, which of course, those of us who are involved with the strategic plan know that that has connotations with it that typically doesn't include recreational use or some of the
Right.
park features. So we might want to look at that going forward.
Okay, I can look at it.
On the revenue side, are we making room for more boat storage for next
Are
year?
we-
Because that jumped up.
Oh, no, we're just charging, so one of the ways we were figuring to increase some revenue without too much hardship was we used to charge, if somebody stacked their floats on top of each other, we would just charge for the bottom float. But what was happening was that, Mr. Jones had the bottom float and Mr. Smith had the top float, and only Mr. Jones was getting charged for it because we were just doing the footprint. So now if there's 3 floats stacked up, we're charging for all 3. So that's, exponentially more money. So you're gonna charge, if your float is being stored at the harbor, you're gonna get charged per float, which, had some back and forth with the harbor committee and some of the residents, but was agreed upon, because I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, and I think the contractors are charging the owners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we had, many discussions about it on the harbor committee level. And, I think it's just charging by, per item.
So I guess that the discussion of how we use and encourage transient boats and generate the revenue on the dock is something that, I know the Harbor Committee has some views on. I don't think the Select Board has really discussed that, but it's definitely something that should be discussed, because the harbor is one of our few sources of revenue. And I think I know it's a balance and all of that, but we also have to, not every resident of Rockport has a boat that they want to be able to use, have the dock available for them when they want it. And I think we have to be cognizant of that. And I'm not sure here is the place to discuss it, but we understand from Abby that there would be the potential for more revenue if there was a different approach.
Mm-hmm. I'd be happy to bring that to them again as maybe a suggestion from you all, and then sort of maybe give you an update. Or Kim, because Kim's the,
Yeah,
is
Kim's
Kim's
the
there, right?
liaison to the harbor
Yep.
committee, so.
Yep, so
Gonna
Kim,
pin
between
down
our
the
two
date.
brains, we
Yeah.
can remember that.
So any other questions for Abby? Okay. Any concerns with the harbor budget here, things that we want to make sure get set aside for later discussion, or is this good to go from everybody's perspective? Okay. Thank you, Abby.
Yeah, thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
See you,
Good to
Abby.
see you all.
Heal well.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
All right, next is planning. That's page 59. We have Brian.
And remember, everyone had replacement pages, so if you haven't made those replacements, now's a good time to do so.
I gave them to you at the first meeting.
Yep,
You replaced them when I gave them to you, Helen.
you're already ahead of the game.
You gotta know.
Is it updated on the is it updated on the website?
No.
haven't checked
Okay.
She came in with
The only thing that changed is I expanded those columns so they weren't pound signs.
And they don't have page numbers at the bottom.
No, because I just printed those 2 pages.
So we have planning community development, net increase, or decrease of 22.52%. Obviously, we already discussed that 8 hours ago when we started this meeting, that there's the shift of the half of the assistant position for Orion is now shared with the town clerk's office. So part of that is a decrease in wages that you'll see and benefits. Additionally, Orion presented to the select board a change to the fee schedule that was approved at the March or February meeting. And so that has been adopted, and so that's reflective of the presented budget you have before you. Those are the high points. I see anything else that you want to highlight, Orion, or?
Can we just get a copy of the fee schedule changes?
Oh, sure, yeah, we'll get you that, yeah.
That was gonna be my question, so you got it.
Easy.
I guess to touch on the fee schedule, just so you have that information when you look at it, periodically we review, and Andrew does a good job keeping track of what kind of the area is charging, so that we're not falling behind, so we're kind of staying in the ballpark of what everybody else is charging as well. So
Right, I just, yeah, I mean, my worry is we talked about affordability, we talked about cost of building houses, housing shortages, just want to be sensitive to how much are we adding to the cost of
Oh,
building
yeah.
something?
No, for sure. And right now, we're enforcing the full MUBEC, so the building and uniform building code. So before, we weren't enforcing all of that, but now that we're close to the 4,000 mark on the population, which will then become a requirement, we've opted to go ahead and start integrating that so that it's a smoother transition.
So the number you're looking at, I guess, Ryan, is the, going from 95 to 125 or 31% increase in the permits?
On the revenue, the permit fees?
Yes.
R0200? Yes.
Typical permit, what's the increase in a dollar-wise? Just a typical single-family house?
I think roughly, if I did an average on the whole fee schedule, is about a 20% increase across the whole board of everything, if you were to average it out. To give you that exact single-family home permit, I couldn't give you that because we're dealing with multi-million-dollar mansions to some small
Understand.
ones, so.
So that permit fee revenue is a mix of fee increase and increase in numbers of actual permits.
Yeah, so right now, I will say Andrew's doing a phenomenal job of catching some permit revenue that we weren't collecting before, but we probably should have been, just from missed review. So he's been able to catch a lot of other items that we should have been billing that we weren't in the past.
I was looking at your article here as far as hiring a consultant. to help, again, implement the comprehensive plan?
The 30/60.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing that can be done internally, you need to spend 10,000 to have somebody come in and just tell you how to do that?
Well, the bulk of that 10,000 is actually a part of the second half of that. So that's part of the third-party economic development consultant for professional development. So Jeremy Martin over in Camden, he was presented an opportunity from the Rue Institute to bring a consultant up to work with small businesses. And the number, if we were to absorb that cost all on our own, is too high. But in talking with a few people, I think doing a split with the interested businesses would make that more affordable for those businesses to get some professional service help. And then that also is a conjunction with Camden.
Yeah. Do we have any gauge of how many small businesses want to operate in Rockport?
That want to operate in Rockport?
They want to form a business in Rockport, small business. Do we have a gauge or a survey or?
Well, what we're currently doing is surveying the existing businesses to see, just to get some feedback from them. That information is not in yet. In terms of businesses that want to be here, yes, they do. They like the area. They want to have the live-work aspect here. We also have a very good school district, so that does a lot of the driving for us. But to give you like a specific number, I don't have that. No.
I was just trying to get a feel for, I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to promote this, but I just wondered how much interest is there in a small business operating, starting up in Rockport? That's all.
There is interest.
So what would this consultant, what do people opening a business in Rockport need from a Rockport-specific economic development consultant?
What does a business coming in?
Yeah, what this person is, like if I want to start a small business, what am I gonna get from my third-party economic development consultant?
I wouldn't say this right here is for a business incoming. This is for existing businesses looking to get that extra help.
On what?
On trying to expand.
Okay.
Trying to expand or find ways to make their business operate better. That's what this is, for existing businesses, not for new incoming
Okay.
businesses.
This is the program through the Rue Institute.
Through the Rue Institute.
So the Rue Institute we'd be bringing a crew up from there, and they'd be leading this.
That's
They'd be
training.
training. It'd be professional development for small business owners. And they'd be paying, what, 50%? We ballpark? 50% of the cost they'd be covering, which would be $1,200 per business or something for,
I'd have to relook at that.
what is
number
it, a
exactly.
2-month program or something?
It's about a 2-month program, yes.
Well, and I think it's, a lot of small businesses, are very good at the substance of what their business does, but so often they don't know how to run a business. And having that kind of help can make all the difference between
But-
the success of the
And we just-
business.
The landscape is littered with economic development agencies and Job Corps and Chamber of Commerce and Small Business Administration and.
Chamber of
I mean, it's just
Commerce.
Chamber of
mountains
Commerce is not here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also leading this, so like, because of the Chamber of Commerce not being around anymore, what are we gonna do about that?
And the survey that Ryan's referring to just hit the mailboxes today, which is to determine what exactly small businesses want in the.
Lower property taxes would be my guess.
Yes.
What they want in the way of programming for a professional development program, led by the Rue Institute.
So essentially, the town is investing in the health of these businesses.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
And it's a new,
The town
new idea,
benefits.
it's based on, a proposal that's worked well, and I think Camden's got it. Falmouth,
Rockland's gonna be doing it as well.
Rockland's gonna be
so
doing it.
they're
Is
gonna be
it
the
Falmouth
first in the
or
area.
Yarmouth?
Yarmouth.
Yarmouth, okay.
I mean, the only reason you would do this is presumably you would collect more tax revenue if these businesses grow, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah, and personal property tax, and we get that
Sure.
from businesses, so that's.
Most confusingly named tax out there.
It is. I
The
totally
personal,
agree.
it only applies to businesses.
Ryan, I had on the chart we've got in here for permits issued by month, we need to, I think, add a footnote or something to explain how Andrew's now consolidating those permits.
Oh, yeah, we should have.
Because it's misleading. It looks like our permit applications are dropping dramatically.
So to kind of talk on that a little bit, it does look like it's dropping, and if you look at the revenue's increasing. So what that is before the prior code enforcement officer, each project would have multiple permits, and that would just get included in this number. So it looked like each project had, or I guess it looked like there was more projects going on than reality. So what Andrew's been trying to do is consolidate the house being built or the project being built. It may have multiple permits, but it's really just one permit necessarily, even though it has multiple layers. So it shows a different story. The other story insinuated there was more work being done than revenue collected. This one is insinuating more of kind of the project side, and then the revenue shows a little bit more of the, I guess, size of the project.
So to that point, Ryan, your definition of a project, can you?
Like a house or
So if
if
we
they're
had a
doing an expansion.
multi-unit subdivision, would that be one project, or would
No,
that?
no. The permit itself would be each of those inside that development.
Each cluster of permits would be a project?
I think we're talking the same thing. So a house has multiple permits associated with it. That's necessarily one.
That's
of
one
those
project.
numbers.
Okay, yep, got it.
You're speaking of like entrance permit, leach field.
Plumbing permit.
Yeah, that's all one permit.
Pretty much.
And how do you, sorry, Craig, you done? Yep. How do you arrive at the value of the project? Is it the assessed value when it's done? or-
So they provide, so are you talking this other metric I have here?
Yeah, the total cost of projects you've got.
Down here. Yeah, so in our new permitting software, the assessing department, they really like, they've requested this information whenever someone submits the permit. So whenever it completes its process, they then review it and they do their inspection to determine the assessed value. So having that information ahead of time, what that project's supposedly costing, gives them more information about the direction they need to go in their review. So this is information that the contractor has provided on their application. So it's not information that we have assessed per se, but it's information that they've provided. So sometimes they do enter zero, so sometimes these numbers are actually a little bit more than what they probably are. Sometimes I don't think anybody's entering a high number just to be interesting or funny, but it'd be interesting to do a $3 million porch, but I haven't seen that yet. So it's a good metric to see. That's what this is.
Could you just explain, I didn't understand this, on page 66, on line R0208, Department, increase in expected revenue related to offsetting amount from wastewater budget for the local plumbing inspector, $15,917.
So the local plumbing inspector, that's also the code enforcement officer. So
Mhm.
that's offsetting a portion of his salary. So it's coming from the wastewater budget into the revenue to offset his expense.
Okay.
So the other thing you don't include in your, in your revenues, Orion, but I'm a big fan of, is one of your charts that show grant application submissions and how much we've been awarded in the last year. It's almost $3 million.
That's on page 68.
Yeah, I'm sorry, page 68.
Huh?
I think it would help everybody to understand what goes into finding $3 million. Can you briefly describe? I mean, that's multiple grants, and it's, you know, you have to, you're one of the few people on the town staff that is bringing in significant revenue.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in how you're doing it.
In 1 hour or less.
What's that?
Explanation, 1 hour or less.
1 hour or less, yeah, I'll do you the favor of that. A lot of it is, so experience from Midcoast Council of Governments, where I worked before here, that gave me a breadth of experience with all the funding agencies that were here. And so I had a little bit of a foot in the door, they knew my name at least, but that at least let me know where they're located. And then from there, I mean, a lot of these are because we have good planning documents. So the capital improvement plan itself, and Megan has done a very good job with that, has been the leading cause of where organized this budget itself is another reason why we rank as high as we do. So because we have those strong documents, it's a little bit easier for a reviewing entity to say, okay, if we give them the money, they're likely gonna spend this. So that puts us in a whole category in itself. And then from there, we go into the comprehensive plan, which we have, which gives us the strength. And then if we've got the specific documents like the harbor strategic plan, the concept plan, or the village partnership or initiative project, the traffic infrastructure study, those then allow me to focus in on certain projects as well, or grant funding opportunities that's more shovel-ready. So the more shovel-ready the project is, the higher likelihood of funding. And then from there, it's how well are you at managing money, so.
And locating the grants and getting
And
the grant.
locating the
You've got to
grants.
write the grant, you've got, there's a fair
Writing
bit.
grants is very time-consuming, I won't lie. There are offshoots that are just a couple of pages, and you just fill it out real quick, and you submit it. Those are very, very lucky opportunities. But for the most part, it's very complicated. And once you get into the federal requests, like with EDA, that is a very time-consuming process. And if you want to go with FEMA, that's going to be a headache in and of itself. But it's just time.
So
you just got some
average, sorry, one more question, whoever was asking. So roughly in a year, typical year, how many grants are you applying for versus how many are actually
Yeah.
coming home to
I
roost?
have some of that information over here.
Page 69.
Well, page 61, the front page. So anywhere from, like right now, this year, I've got one grant in right now, but no, it's actually two now, but the second one happened after this was submitted. But anywhere from 6, 8 grant applications a year. And that's just what's available. So right now, we have congressional district spending requests that we're going for. That's going to be 3 that we're going for. Those are due into this week. But
And so before you were here, were we doing any of this activity?
yeah, so actually, I did a little research in my office. Now, mind you, the number I'm going to share with y'all is number from the paper documents that are in my office. I dug through the grant file. So from the 80s, 88 to before I started here, in my office, just the paper-based stuff, I could count $790,000 that the town was awarded. Now, I talked with Megan a little bit. She knows that we've received more than that, but I just don't know to which department or anything of that nature. But the paper-based that we have in my department is $790,000. Now, that's
From
accurate from the
1988
projects.
to, from 1988 to, when did you start?
20, 21, 22, somewhere in there. So now, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take that as actual, factual, everything else. But at least from what I can find in my department, and it was a heavily paper-based system when I started, so I'd say that's pretty close to accurate for what my department did back then. And then when I started to now, 5.5 million.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Nice. I think you definitely set a high water mark for return on investment.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 7.5 in about 3 months,
It's
right?
gonna be 7.5 in about 3 months. Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
That's for the harbor?
That's for
Bill?
the harbor. Yep.
And that's the match? Is that the match, or is that?
Yeah, in effect, yeah.
How much is the congressional one?
That I'm applying for, about 800,000 right now.
Any other questions for Ryan? Do we have questions or concerns that we want to set aside for planning, for future discussions, or are we good with what we see from the planning department here? And we'll get the fee schedule, so people can see that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Great.
Keep
Thanks,
doing
Ryan.
more.
Conservation, 49. Conservation Commission,
You want me to do it?
Yes.
increase of 4.4%.
Yeah, the Conservation Commission budget is essentially laboratory costs for the sampling we do. There's couple other things, dues and memberships. You can see we budget $250, but you can see in previous years, we didn't spend it because they will not send us an invoice. It's not called MCOA. And I said to MCOA, I say it to them every 3 or 4 months, give me an invoice, I'll give you the $250. They don't give me an invoice, doesn't get spent. training education, $250. That's just bribery fees to bring people in to buy them drinks and donuts at various events that we hold. The 11,250 is essentially the laboratory fees that go to 4 different laboratories for the work we do. And, you know, fees went up a little bit this year. Plus, we've added a little bit of more sampling in Chickawaukee Lake because that one is starting to turn green near the end of the year, every year. And at some point, that was treated for phosphorus back in 1992 because it was really turning green. That was expected to last 30 to 35 years. Do the math, we're basically there. So it's starting again, and we're probably headed toward another treatment. The state thinks we need one. We haven't, you know, we haven't figured out exactly how to get it done. State's not gonna help us pay for it. They'll help us with some grant money for some related things, but not the treatment itself. And we've got to decide whether or not we want to push forward with that. Broad terms, it's $100,000 to get the work done to get to the treatment stage, and it's probably $1 million treatment. Those are from the state itself. We've talked to them a bit about the process. We're not there. We would do it with non-public money, figure out how to get grants, donations, whatever it is. Anyway, Chicky's going to get more and more attention, and the greener it gets, the louder the noise is going to be on it. So that's Chicky. The other stuff is we sample the harbor. We sample 5 different streams leading into the harbor. And we also sample Mesa's Pond, we sample Rocky, and we sample the harbor itself. All of this work is done under the auspices of the DEP through a couple of different programs that we work with them on. So it's a fairly, I wouldn't say prescriptive thing. It's still by choice, but it's something that we at the Conservation Commission and the town has traditionally felt was important to get a grip on our water quality. One last thing I'll mention is that we all are aware of the bacteria problems at Goodies Beach. We're trying to figure out, we originally got a notice of violation from the US EPA back in, I believe it was 2012, and that has not been extinguished. So once in a while we get a little inquiry from the US EPA that says, all right, what's going on? What have you figured out? We're doing currently some DNA typing of the water samples themselves, trying to figure out what species, which is new technology, is contributing to it. The DEP is convinced it's human. We're not. We just got a bunch of DNA analysis in the last 3 months that, believe it or not, it is cow. Now, how do you get cow at Goodies Beach? You get it from compost and manure. And we're not sure if that's the actual cause, but I would love to extinguish that notice of violation and get that from hanging over our head in the future. So that sampling is part of this budget.
And if it's not human, then EPA goes away?
Well, it's not so much that. I mean, we still have a management issue whereby within the harbor design project, we're looking at actually extending the outfall that comes through the pier right next to Goodies. That's the problem, is we have a stormwater discharge that goes right into the ocean right there, circles right into Goodies Beach. And if it rains more than an inch within 48 hours, don't go swimming. I'm kidding, but that's when the issue occurs. And the problem is that stormwater outfall coming from the essentially Pascal Avenue, both north and south of that general area. And extending the outfall is probably the right answer. And that's where we're headed. Within the harbor project itself, we're gonna bake those costs into that particular project.
Do you test Clam Cove?
No, we don't. You know, Clam Cove was originally tested around, gosh, I want to say it was 2010 or maybe even 2000. It's been a while. And it failed so miserably that it simply was looked at as no one's going to dig clams in there anymore forever. And the amount of effort, money that would be taken, needed in order to bring it back doesn't exist right now. Now, the state the DEP specifically, their Department of Marine Resources, is doing some testing of Clam Cove to figure out what's living in there. And they started that about a year ago, and we haven't gotten any initial reports from them yet. But they literally have a little couple of boxes, and they go out every so often, and they count the number of this kind of crab and that kind of snail. And so they're trying to get a sense for it. But I'm not even sure why they're choosing to do it. But
But they're
anyway,
just
the
looking,
data's out
they're
there.
just looking for marine life.
They are.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna turn it into a clamming organ, you've gotta stimulate that growth and a lot of different things. But the bacteria contributions were so outrageous that it ain't gonna happen.
Well, thank you to you and the other volunteers, because that saves the town a lot of money to have what you guys do for us.
Yeah, well, we'll see if we can get that thing extinguished.
Yeah.
Go figure.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Bill or Ryan for Conservation Commission? Okay, I guess that's
it for tonight.
That's it for tonight. I know it's late, everybody wants to get going. I have one just quick note. Regionalization Task Force is something that the Select Board will put on its agenda for our April Select Board meeting. We want to get that happening. We want to start talking about what that looks like and make sure we get a broad-based community engagement in that, so.
County budget?
Oh, yeah, and the county is back in business. The legislature cleared their way to move forward, and they have asked us to provide a county budget rep. So any of you who might be interested in that, reach out to John or me. Be good to have it's a Rockport Hope shared position, but it'd be great to have somebody engaged in that.
Have they approved their budget for the next year?
That's what this is about.
They haven't approved it yet, then?
No, they were not able to,
I knew they didn't have enough members, but.
yeah,
they
yeah,
still-
so they weren't allowed to do anything on the budget, and now they can.
They're about a week or two away from starting their meetings, so there's a little bit of time, so.
Yeah,
if
and reach out to
there's interest.
people you might know or might be interested in that. From a regionalization standpoint, it's a good opportunity to get to know the county
We
better.
need somebody there.
Yep.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Yeah.